Here we go. Hello. This is live on the
Hello.
internet.
Hello.
Hello.
This is the DockerCon pre-show known as the birthday show. We are here basically hanging out on the internet with you. And I have my friends. There's a whole bunch of us here. And we're going to spend a bunch of time talking about Docker stuff. So hopefully that's why you're here. Or you're just here for the lulz. And there's a bunch of stuff going to happen in this show. First, let me introduce you to some of my co-hosts starting this out with me. This is Laura Taco. She is the VP of Engineering at Alia Education. And I got Nirmal Mehta over here, the Chief Technologist at Booz Allen Hamilton. I call him the Chief Technologist, even though there's more than one. I say the. Like,
Yes.
He is the.
There's only one normal though, so
Fair.
That is true.
Hello, Brett. Hello, Laura.
And we have these fancy green screens so that you can watch us like we're not really in the real world.
socially distancing. Yeah.
We're distancing ourselves from even the background here. We're fancy, but we've even got laugh tracks and all sorts of silly little sounds, and we've got prizes. We're going to talk about prizes later. So if you're around, we're going to have some trivia questions every half an hour, and you get to get the chance for prizes if you're the fastest one in the chat to answer the questions. So good luck there. May the best person win.
Yes.
We've got some announcements and some stuff. Let's look at the schedule first. So let's go over to the schedule so everybody's up with this dope schedule. Basically, this is us now. Then we're going to talk about Docker Roadmap in a little bit. And then we're going to have some guests on for the Docker Desktop, talking about what's new there. And then we're going to do some GitHub Actions, which is a new thing Docker just announced, that they have their own official GitHub Actions. And then we're going to talk about using Docker with Kubernetes and all the things you need to deal with there, locally or otherwise. And then we're going to wrap it up with some really cool Docker birthday stories that people shared with us about the community. Of course, you just saw the intro there, and you saw all those photos from all the years of the community. So that's seven. This is the 7th year, right? This is birthday number 7, hence that little 7. So we've been doing this a while, not virtually, but in the real world. And Laura, what was your first birthday?
Yeah. I thought about this before this started because I'm not sure that Docker's first birthday. I don't remember it, but I must have celebrated it. So I'm going to say 7. I was definitely using Docker before it turned 1.
Yeah, before they turned 1. Not you.
Before they turned 1.
Yeah. We do have some.
Before I turned 1.
we do have some Docker babies, though. I think we showed a couple off there. And they get their own swag.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, Nirmal, what about you?
The first Docker birthday was probably the first time Docker's birthday was celebrated on the 2nd year.
Yeah.
2015. I think 2015 was like a big year.
Yeah.
It was a penultimate year for Docker. It went on that exponential curve, I think, at that point, and it was a good time. I think the meetups and everything like that were just starting to get rolling, the big meetups and the virtual kind of community, and it was a very exciting time. I think there was also some moves from Docker was moving to different offices, and DockerCon 2015 was a big event just after their birthday. So I think it was all a whirlwind of activity and whatnot in the last 6 years of birthday celebrations. But just like Laura and I believe yourself as well, Brett, we've been using Docker since 2013, 2014. So 7 years, that's very exciting. For a new technology, for sure.
Yeah, I think the one theme about that is that the people that use it are still as much a fan about it today as they were when they first learned it. And it's way easier to use now than it was in 2013, 2014.
Oh, Brett, let me tell you the ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my origin story with Docker was that I first tried to use it. I didn't understand it. I thought I understood it, but then I really didn't understand it. Didn't understand what a container was. And I failed in the first project just because it was like, I think it was pre-1. It was like first year or something. Because, everybody's read it on, Hacker News. And I thought, well, I got to use this because it's released. And then I was not ready. My mind was not yet blown. So I had to come back about 6 months later. Yeah.
I think we're still getting as a community.
Yeah, I remember we I mean, how did you even use it? I just thought this morning that Docker Desktop has been in our lives for so long, it's hard to imagine a world where it didn't exist. But for, using a Mac as your development machine, setting up Vagrant boxes, running CoreOS, that was how we did things. And then Docker Machine came along, and then Docker Desktop now, thankfully, makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, remember Docker Toolbox? I think that was my first Mac experience because they had the toolbox. Not near as awesome as Docker Desktop. I was trying to use it for CI. Yeah, so it was pure Linux, and I knew it was going to help us, but I didn't know how. So yeah, it was like everyone else. I think I'm the baby here because I didn't have my first Docker birthday until 2016. I don't think because I had to start the meetup here. We didn't have a meetup that I could go to and learn about it, like all those people in the pictures. We had so many pictures to go through. I was like, I had to, if you just go searching Docker birthday on the internet, there's this legacy, and I found that there's a couple of shots in there from the very first birthday, which I think was like Docker staff and friends in San Francisco from the very first year in 2014, and it was really cool to actually find those pictures still on Twitter with all those original comments from so long, 6 years ago, and people were just talking about it like it was this normal thing, but they had no idea. They had no idea.
Yeah.
So, to all the people on the chat and watching us today, welcome to this Docker community that's been growing steadily for the last 7 years. It's a very welcoming place, and I hope you all realize today during the live stream and the birthday celebration how welcoming of a virtual place this is. So I'd love to see people post when they first started using Docker in the chat. That'd be kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's so cool for us to see, because we've been using Docker for so long, is just how many people are coming to the project for the first time, even now in 2020. I know it might seem, we're all sitting here saying this is our 7th birthday and we've been using it for so long. For every one of us, there's hundreds and hundreds of you who are just getting acquainted with Docker for the first time, or just having the first opportunity to use it professionally, because the reality is that, not everyone has the same opportunity. There's legacy software, revenue generating software, as I like to call it, that sometimes doesn't have the most modern stack. So welcome. We're glad you're here.
Yeah,
for sure. And if you're here and you're wanting to learn, you can do that at the same time. There's actually, let's see if I can, if you go to docker.com/birthday, I'm going to try out some screen sharing here. Let's see.
There's so many awesome resources to learn Docker, and today is a special day because there's what's going on there?
Don't look at the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. Oh, you're seeing my green screen.
Yeah, everything's been exposed just temporarily there, Bret.
That's okay. It's all part of the show. I only have 3 cameras, so.
Is it at docker.com/birthday? Is that where it's at?
Yeah. So we got docker.com/birthday. The one thing I did not test is sharing my own screen. Clearly didn't plan for that. So go to docker.com/birthday, and there are 7 badges you can get there. I'm calling them merit badges, and they will basically take you to a special setup of Play with Docker, and some of that is new stuff, new features that have come out in the last year that you may not be aware of. And the next thing we want to talk about is DockerCon. Now we were internally we're kind of joking that this is like the DockerCon pre-show, where we announced DockerCon. I don't know. Docker announced it a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago.
So the CFPs, right?
Yeah, and CFP. So if you go to dockercon.com or just docker.com/dockercon, little URL there at the top. So if you go there, you can both sign up for announcements you can learn about what's going to happen, which is going to be super great. We've been planning it for months. I'm lucky to be a part of it. And the more we plan it, the more I get excited about it. The CFP has been announced. So if you want to talk about something you're doing with Docker and containers, then please supply us your information in the CFP, because this is going to be a virtual event, which means we're not confined to the restrictions of how many rooms we have. So we're going to have at least 3 or 4 simultaneous streams all at the same time. And you're going to be able to choose the rooms you're in, and it's going to be really cool. And you can kind of scroll down that page on the DockerCon website to find out about the different streams, the different things that are going to happen. We're going to have, like today, we're going to have prizes. We're going to have captains hanging out in sort of like a Twitch-style room to answer all your tech questions. We're going to be like your help desk. Basically, we're going to do a day of internet help desk.
That sounds amazing.
I believe these two are volunteering. They did not know this, but I'm volunteering them right now to be a part of part of the captain's help desk.
Yeah.
And
well, that's in all seriousness for just a second. That's how welcoming this community is. I think all of us, all the Docker captains, the folks that are running the meetups, we're all going to be there, helping folks answering questions, contributing to the content. Trying to replicate an in-person kind of show as much as possible. So really excited and looking forward to participating in that and following Bret's leadership through that event for sure.
Yeah.
So sign up.
Sign up now. And then, it costs you nothing. It's a free event, in case that was a question in chat. Docker, like this event, DockerCon will be a free event. And we're going to have theCUBE, which if you've not ever watched theCUBE, you can go to thecube.net. They're an excellent news, and they're at all of the live events. So when you go to the real world events, they got this fancy stage set up. They're interviewing people all day. Nirmal and I were lucky enough to be on one of them one time. And they're a really great team. And they're now going to be basically a virtual channel, one of the channels on our DockerCon live event. Since they can't be at the physical one, they're going to be there doing interviews and hosting the keynotes all day long. And then we're going to be in a place where all us captains are just sort of hanging out in like the basement, basically. And
the hallway track, man.
That's the hallway track. Wow. Absolutely.
The virtual hallway.
And we're going to try to spiff up the chat a little bit, make them some things fancy for you so we can help you with any of your Docker technical questions. It's like the black belt meets hallway track. Because if you ever been to DockerCon, the black belt is the rooms where it's highly technical. There's no slides. It's all diving into the command line and the code. And that's kind of what we're going to do on ours. And then we're going to have tons of sessions, all sorts of stuff, third-party solutions, stuff that Docker's working on, your ideas that you're going to put in the CFP. So I really hope you'll join us. That's going to be in May, the end of May. And again, you can go to dockercon.com to sign up.
And since there's a lot of craziness happening in the world around in-person meetups, I want to let everyone know that Docker does run a virtual meetup. That's what this actually is part of currently. And I think we're probably going to put more chutzpah, if you will, behind the virtual meetups as we encourage everyone to sign up for those. And maybe we're definitely open to suggestions on ways to improve our connection with the community while we're in our isolated virtual spaces these days.
Yeah.
So definitely reach out.
I think this is an awesome opportunity for the community to include people that might have been excluded because of location before.
Yep.
I think everyone's now just on a level playing field, and I think that things are going to be a lot more accessible. So let's just hope that internet connectivity holds up. We've been, I'm in Europe, and we have the very real throttling of YouTube, for example, Netflix taking things down off of HD, which makes things a little bit more difficult. But for at the expense of my own HD, I'm glad that more people are able to join.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, when do the CFPs close, Bret?
Tomorrow night at midnight. So yeah.
If you're someone that in the past might have been hesitant to submit to DockerCon because it's, physically you might have to travel to that location, or it wasn't, timing wise, it didn't work out, or you were hesitant at the size of an audience, perhaps, maybe nervous presenting for the first time, I would encourage all of you to submit a CFP by midnight tomorrow. This is an awesome opportunity to expand the diversity and inclusion of our program for DockerCon.
Yeah, for sure. Someone asked, when is registration open? Technically, registration will be at some point, but since it's a live event online, the registration. Just go to the website now, and there's actually I think a place on the website you can actually sign up for notifications. Yeah. So if you just technically now, because it's really just you signing up with an email address, and then on the day of, you'll have to sign in for chat or whatever, something like that. So not a bunch of process. You don't have to pick your hotel. You don't have to pay that, that travel fee. Get your plane tickets.
Don't have to get on a plane.
Nope.
You can sleep in your own bed. That's like wear pajamas.
That's right.
You can
It's
watch.
gonna be the best DockerCon ever.
Yeah.
You don't even have to dress up.
You can attend in your bed.
That's right.
That's true. Yeah.
That's right. From anywhere, sitting on the couch while your nets are getting throttled, which is just so. Oh, by the way, if you're in here now on YouTube and we're super blurry, just check the little bandwidth thing down at the bottom. Your settings might be a little low, because when we do demos later, you will want to have if you can support it, if it works for you, if you have a high resolution, you'll be able to see those demos. But I think YouTube is also throttling a little bit now, so you'll want to check your defaults, because it now defaults. I think as of yesterday, it defaults the settings in YouTube. So make sure you check your video settings for the demos. All right, before we get to our next segment, we're going to do a prize.
All right. Oh, we lost Laura.
And we lost Laura, and we got Justin. Justin's on early. That's okay. That's totally fine. All right. I got to figure this out. It seems like my software likes to forget that we're on green screen. All right. Let's bring up the Wheel of Fortune, also known as the Whale of Fortune.
All right. Justin's below us now. Oh, there we go. Now we're good.
There we go. All right. So how this is how it's going to work. Every half an hour, we're doing one of these, and I will, we're going to have prizes, and you're going to answer one of our Twitter questions, or not a Twitter question. Sorry, I'm reading the question and seeing Twitter. This is a YouTube live question, so you're going to be in chat, and the first person to answer, at least that we can see in the chat, if it's not going too fast, will get the prize. And let's see what we got here. The first question is, and there's some hints in the pregame show. If you got to watch the pregame, what is the Twitter handle of the real life Docker mascot?
Ooh.
What is the Twitter handle of the real life Docker mascot?
Mm-hmm.
Hint.
We need that 8-bit music right now. Oh, go ahead.
We do. The hint is it's not a whale.
Ooh.
He's a real life Docker mascot, or she.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I saw the winner just now.
Boom.
Do we need a consensus algorithm for who wins?
Who did you see?
There's 3 of us. I saw Bret Tipperman.
Brett, that's what I
with
saw.
The correct answer. Yeah, good.
All right.
2 out of 3 consensus. Sorry, Normal.
It's all good.
All right. You're about to roll the Whale of Fortune. Let's do it. Let's see what he gets.
This is exciting, Brett. This is
This is so
fancy.
cool.
Well, so the yellow one, I was getting ready to say the yellow box is the Super Swag Mega Box, and the white one is Box of Nothing. So you don't want that. All right.
All right. Brett Tipperman, you got a
water bottle, a Docker water bottle.
Nice.
All right. So how this works is, let's see. You're going to have to send an email to Jenny. Jenny is actually the person behind this show. Jenny did all the work setting this up. So you're going to send her an email, and I'm going to put it on screen here. Jenny at Docker. Does that show up? Yes, it does.
I think it shows up behind Normal's head.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, good.
Let's put it over here. So you're going to email Jenny and let her know that you're the winner. And Jenny will send you out some stuff. A water bottle. Maybe something else too. Maybe a little bonus. All right. So that was our Wheel of Fortune. We'll be doing that throughout the show. I should have done the drum roll, but We'll do that
It's
later.
okay. Next one.
All right. So now what we have is we're going to sadly say goodbye to Laura and Nirmal, and they will be on the sidelines while we bring in our next guests, because we can't fit 18 people on the screen at the same time. It's like that Brady Bunch intro from back in the day where we're little boxes, little tiny boxes. Well, thank you two so much for joining. Let's see who's next.
Thank you, Bret. And
Thanks, Bret,
yeah.
and everybody.
yeah, and everybody sign up for DockerCon and submit your talks, and we'll see you virtually in a couple months.
We'll be right back. Just a couple of months. All right. See you guys.
That's it. Bye.
Bye.
All right. We got Justin and Justin. All right. Let's see. Let me reorder us. Let's see. To click the buttons in the right order. All right. Okay, now I actually have a schedule that I was going to put up on the screen. Let's see. We're going to do Docker roadmap now. So this is what we're talking about. All right. Hello.
Are you showing the right picture?
I believe so.
I can just show.
Is this thing on?
This is the point of the show where things start to go off the rails, and and you're all are wearing your proper Docker swag. We've got the scarf there. It's a limited edition.
Yes, that's DockerCon Barcelona, 2015.
Yeah.
DockerCon Barcelona.
Yeah.
Although I brought it to the other DockerCon Barcelona, the second DockerCon Barcelona last year when we went to the football.
Oh, that's right. Did you? That was a funny. Were you one of the ones that got stopped in the football because of the colors?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, they thought we were supporting some rival team.
Yeah. If you're going to give away swag and then go to a football game, you're going to make sure you need the right colors. Yeah, that was actually a concern. I remember talked about it beforehand. It was like making sure that the swag was the right colors. All right, so joining me now, we've got two Justins. We got Justin Cormack, a staff engineer at Docker. You've probably seen him around DockerCons for years, talking about all the technical underpinnings of Docker. And then we got Justin Graham over here, the VP of product at Docker, who you may not have met, but he has been around for a while. And we're here basically to talk about the Docker roadmap, which is something you guys just released last month. Is that right?
Yes.
This month.
Well, actually, technically this month. So we're still in March, right?
We are still in March. Yes.
I've lost track since I haven't left my house in 2 weeks.
It's you don't even know what day of the week it is anymore.
That's right.
We just look out the window. We know that it's daylight. All right. Yeah. And to be honest, there's so many things we talk about in the show because there's a lot of stuff you've released lately. So the blog articles are fast and furious right now. Can you tell us a little bit about the Docker roadmap and what that really is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, in fact, I can, if I can share my screen, we can actually show you the roadmap in this. But I'll talk while I'm sharing. So we launched a public roadmap a few weeks ago, and what that does is allow everyone to see what we're working on and contribute to it. So you can submit your own ideas. It's based on GitHub. So it's github.com/docker/roadmap. There's contributing guidelines, templates for how you contribute. Pull your issues into the issues tab, and then on the projects tab, we have a roadmap that lets you know if we're investigating it, we're in process of writing the code, we're almost there, or something's in preview, or we've shipped it. So I invite everyone to go take a look and contribute your ideas. But we want to really hear from you and have you, everyone in the community, help us with ideas and prioritize what we work on for you.
Yeah, and don't just suggest new things. I mean, also, if someone else has suggested something and you like it, give it a thumbs up or add some more detailed comments or whatever as well, or things that are out there so that we know what you really, really care about.
Yeah, thumbs up. You know, that's a nice thing about GitHub is we now have thumbs up to sort of
Yeah.
give your support without increasing the thread length.
Or even more importantly, thumbs down things you don't think are good ideas, right? So while we're obviously prioritizing the things that have the most thumbs up, it's just as important for us to know what's not important to everyone. So thumb the things down that you think are not good ideas, and we won't do those things. Because
Yeah.
turns out we don't have unlimited resources.
That's true. That there is a reason why there is less things in. You wanna show it off while we're.
No, I first fail of the live show. Somehow my Mac reset.
Oh, ooh,
The
yeah,
privacy settings.
yeah, and we all just got a Mac
actually,
update
Justin,
this week.
If you've done it the correct way, you can share it. But first fail of the live show.
Yeah, that's okay. You know why? Because we didn't make a sacrifice. Somebody reminded us. Ashley
yeah.
is in
Oh,
chat.
that's right. Oh,
But that's okay. That's for
Ashley
Docker.
reminded us.
That's for DockerCon technically. So we will make sure for DockerCon we will have the demo gods be
yes.
appeased with our sacrifice. So what we're talking about, in case you haven't been to a DockerCon, is there's this tradition for years now at a live event for DockerCon that there will be something that you need to do at that DockerCon before you go on stage, because DockerCon's known for having all these live real world sort of demos where there's no videos or wizardry behind you to make it you think it's live, but it's really live. So there's chance for failure, and we always do sacrifice to the demo gods so that hopefully our demos will go well. It might be one year it was fortune cookies, one year it was Lego blocks, building a little Lego block thing. We had I think putting your cowboy hat in Austin on the hat rack. That was one. We had espresso one year. I think that was in Copenhagen. Anyway, we've done lots of them.
Yeah, we have to come up with a clever idea that looks awesome and translates through video. This will be an interesting challenge. In fact, I would love if the folks on the chat would submit some interesting ideas for sacrifices to the demo gods.
Yeah,
for
virtually.
DockerCon.
What would be our
Otherwise-
virtual sacrifice?
Otherwise, all the demos will fail, and it'll be very disappointing.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. All right. So we're gonna let's go to shared screen, and then we'll bring up you guys. All right. Let's talk about it. Boy, this really doesn't like the green screen here. All right. There we go.
Awesome. We've got it up, right? So Justin, if you could click on the issues tab, and we'll start there. So first, here are all the issues that have been submitted. We're labeling them. Issues that have been submitted by the community, we're labeling those. We've labeled them by product. And then if you go ahead into the top one there, or sort. Actually, yeah, good idea. Sort. Why don't you sort by most thumbs up, and then we'll go into the ones that have gotten the most thumbs up. So CPU performance and Docker Compose and Go are the two top ones. So let's go to the Docker Compose and Go issue. And where Ben Gotch, who you'll hear from in a little bit, has opened this issue. It's got 40 thumbs up, and we're having a pretty interesting conversation with a few folks in the community on this. And this is something that we're going to actually prioritize. So if you go ahead into the projects, Justin, we can show what that looks like. So when we have things that we're investigating, which means we're researching, we're talking to folks, we might be even emailing or chatting with some of you in the community. We're trying to sort of build our thesis of what these things are and make sure we have all of the use cases and edge cases built out. When we actually start building something, you'll see it in the "We're writing the code" column, as you can see with building Docker Compose and Go. And then almost there means we're within a 1 to 2 weeks of it being ready. And in certain cases, we will actually move things into the developer preview edge. Today, that's primarily desktop and Compose, but we're going to try to expand that to Docker Hub and other things in the future. And then when we ship things, we will move it into the ship column. And we'll let you know. So if you watch this, you'll get notified. But we're trying to be better about blogging and tweeting about these things when we launch them. But it's also handy if you just want to come here and see what's new with Docker recently. You can just come here and see what's shipped recently, and you'll get an idea of what's new.
Yeah, so let's remind people that URL. That's github.com/docker/roadmap.
Right.
Yeah.
That's roadmap. Yeah, and Justin, if you could click on the code column, we'll just quickly review. The code column up on the nav next to issues, or the code link.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
Perfect. So we've written a bunch of content to just help you onboard onto the public roadmap. So what it is, how you see it, what we do with early access in the README. We've also written a code of conduct as well. So please go read that.
Hey Justin, can you zoom in real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, keep going.
And then we've also at the top written a contributing guidelines document, which will talk you through how to contribute, and then walk you through a template as well. So actually, we can click on a new issue, or we can go to the issues tab and try to open up a new issue and just show the template there.
I'm not logged in on this browser.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, I can fix that though.
All right, we've got some great questions stacking up here. So,
well, I just want to point out that it's just a really good thing that our security architect has two-factor authentication set up. So.
Proof. Proof right there.
So this is the template. So we pre-fill these questions in, and it's really important that if you're submitting an issue, you provide as much of this data as possible. Either right when you submit it or over, a short amount of time after you do. It just really helps us, inform our questions, and then maybe we'll open up a discussion on it, and it helps other people understand what you're thinking, and then either upvote it, downvote it, or otherwise.
Nice.
Cool. Why don't we take some questions? I'd love to answer some of the questions in the chat.
Yeah. Let's see. One of them was, can we talk about what?
Wow.
Let's get back. Okay.
That was awesome.
Let's get back to the green screen there. How about that? All right.
There we go.
One of them was, I can't find it now because there's so much stuff in chat. But one of them was a question around now that Docker is a refocused company, what is Docker? What products are with Docker now?
Yeah, that's really good question. So the products that are currently with Docker are Docker Desktop, Docker Hub, and all of our upstream open source primitives. So Docker Registry, Docker Compose, Docker Engine, the Docker CLI. So all those things that you're used to. The things that went over to Mirantis were everything that was under the Docker Enterprise umbrella. So UCP, DTR, and those things. Yeah,
it's like if it's open source, stay with Docker.
It's here.
And if it's a developer tool, it's us as well. I mean,
That's
all the developer tools. If it's open source, all that stuff is us. All the things you really love.
That's an easy way to talk about it. And then, all right, we had someone asked how they can follow along. So I'm just going to say all the socials, sign up for dockercon.com to get news on that. Docker has a newsletter. You can sign up on their website.
The Docker blog as well is another great thing to follow. We've significantly ratcheted up our blogging activity the past month or two. So there's a lot of great reading material up there. At Docker on Twitter is another good place to do that. And then our public roadmap that we just shared is another great place. So there's no shortage of places to engage and follow along.
And then when will Docker be running natively on Mac OS?
Good question.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to run Mac OS containers is a weird thing. If you really want native Mac OS containers, it's something that there's a few experiments with that people have done over the years. But it's kind of difficult, and I'd say if you really want it, open a roadmap issue. But it's something that it's important to understand what people's use cases are there and what you want to use it for, because it's quite a hard technical problem, and it's one of these things where I've talked to a few people who are really interested in it, but really only a handful. We've done some little experiments around it at various times, but partly because we'd like to build Docker Desktop in containers, and Docker Desktop, lots of it runs on a Mac, but for almost all use cases, people want Linux containers. It's one of those kind of hard technical things without many people really asking for it, but it might be possible. So it's kind of exciting in that sense, technically.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question here around asking if we have a developer survey. I see a move to centralized development from GitLab, AWS, Microsoft, Red Hat, and others. So I think maybe they're not asking if they can fill out a survey. They're maybe asking if Docker has a survey they've done. I'm not sure if that's.
So we did send out a survey to some Docker Hub subscribers a couple of months ago, but I think this is a good idea for us to maybe survey a bunch of folks more broadly. So I'd say probably the best way to start engaging on that is we do have a Docker community Slack that you can join, and if you join that Slack, that will likely pull some of the folks to send a new survey to in that respect. We may also look into doing something on GitHub that through the roadmap, but that's a good idea.
Yeah,
we do look at the survey results from other people's surveys, but they don't always ask all the questions we would have asked. So there's definitely things we'd like to know about how you use Docker and your problems and things you'd like to see that would be really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, and those things are related to the roadmap. It's almost like the roadmap could, like, if someone wants to survey, they could also look at the roadmap and upvote and downvote there. So, or just submit ideas. But the next question is, are you still working on the Moby project? Hey, Marcos, is it also under the Docker umbrella, or is it going to be evolve on its own path? What's the relationship between Moby and Docker?
Go ahead, Justin.
Yes, we're still working on it. Yeah, absolutely. But it's obviously still going to remain a place where we're working with other people on it as well. It's it is very much a community project, and we have a lot of contributors, and we have actually been looking at how to rebalance things recently. So, for example, we moved libnetwork into the Moby GitHub org recently because there was some effort to refactor how libraries are shared and how things are shared, and it might get moved into the main Moby repo, but we've taken some pieces out of it that Kubernetes are using into separate repos. So there's lots of stuff going on there, and we are still absolutely working with the community on Moby.
Cool.
And we're very much. I mean, what I'll add to that is we're very much moving the ball forward on Compose as well. So that you're going to see some exciting things coming up with relation to Compose. I'll leave that cliffhanger there.
Yeah. Compose has a bright future, and I'm excited to talk more about it here in a little bit. How has Docker? I'm gonna skip that question. We can ask that one later. Are there any new features or major changes coming to Docker Linux versus Docker Windows? I'm assuming we're talking about the engine, not Docker Desktop, but the engine itself. So, is there stuff on the roadmap that we can see publicly related to like engine features? I guess is maybe Linux versus Windows.
I mean, the work that's going on with Windows is really finishing the work on incorporating Windows containers into Containerd so that they've got an integrated and consistent runtime with Linux containers. Because when we first did, Windows containers was something that we started working on really, really early. And it was a great partnership with Microsoft. But from the code point of view, it was always, there were a lot of very different paths. And part of the work on Containerd was having one runtime that runs everywhere. And Microsoft are working really hard on finishing that integration with Containerd so that it's much more consistent. Everything goes through the same APIs rather than having separate APIs for Windows, which is going to make everything much easier and cleaner once it's integrated. And they're also working on things like lcal support in Containerd and so on. So that kind of technical work should make Windows and Linux much more similar than they have been in the past.
Cool. Slightly related to that, one of the questions was, and I should have timed it to see how long we were going to get before we got this question. Is Docker Swarm staying at Docker, or was it moved to Mirantis?
It's not moved, but it's an open source project, and Mirantis are contributing to it, and they're continuing to ship it. So it's something that logically we might move into the Moby project because it's kind of part of Engine, but and to make it clearer that for people like Mirantis who want to contribute, that it's it's a community project, not a Docker specific project.
Right.
That's right. And Mirantis has also blogged and announced that they're going to carry forward moving Swarm in the Docker Enterprise platform because there are many customers that are still running their container workloads on Swarm-based Docker Enterprise. So if you're using Swarm or want to continue to use Swarm, there's a path forward there.
Yeah, and if I'm going to do a little plug, if you are wanting to catch up with all the happenings over the last 4 months with Swarm, just search here on YouTube later, Docker Swarm 2020, and you should hopefully find my video, which we did a couple weeks ago. Another Docker captain who unfortunately won't be on the show today, Brandon, and I talked all about like the Docker split 4 months ago, what that means for Mirantis, what that meant for Docker, where does Swarm go, the Swarm PRs that have happened lately, Swarm. What Mirantis put out some official statements, and so there's lots of stuff to talk about there if you're really someone excited about Swarm. But we're not going to have a Swarm show today, but you can catch all of that from last week. It's also in my podcast, so you can go look for that too. But that'll get you all the answers for that. All right, rapid fire questions. We've got like 4 minutes left. All right.
All right.
Let's see. Someone is asking about. Well, you know what? These aren't roadmap questions. I'll try to. Sorry for everyone who's asking for technical support. We just don't have enough time to answer all the technical questions, but we will keep looking at them, and so maybe later when we get more into technical demos, we can maybe answer some of those questions. Is Docker moving or changing because of serverless computing and microservices?
Yeah, so I'll take that. So we do have ambition to support not only container images but sort of everything that is a component for an application or a microservice that you're building. So manifests, other compute primitive formats. So that's something in our backlog. Nothing to announce yet in terms of something immediate, but that's where we're taking. That's where we're going to be taking the product strategy for Docker moving forward. So you stay tuned to the public roadmap. You should expect to see some of these things showing up in the investigating column in the next weeks to a month or so.
Yeah, watch the roadmap, right?
Yeah.
And someone here asked about what is the future of Docker, new changes. I'd say look at the roadmap. That's one of these big changes that Docker's trying to do is they've always had internal plans, obviously, for the last 7 years, but now that the company is more focused on the developer tooling and the open source work, where we all get the chance to see and have access and even give our opinions and change that stuff with the roadmap. So definitely go check that out. Let's see.
Yeah, we've never had a public roadmap in the whole of the last 7 years. So it's a real improvement, I think, from engineering's point of view. We're still we're still getting people used to the idea that you put things out in public that you're working on. But I think it's really the feedback's been really amazing.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing is like a lot of us captains were just trying to get the word out that, hey, Docker's listening. They always were, but just now in a new GitHub repo that doesn't have all the issues.
Now we're also watching and commenting.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so for those of you that are asking questions about Docker Desktop, we're actually going to talk about Docker Desktop next. So I'm going to leave those questions till the next segment. And then for those asking about Kubernetes, we're going to talk about that later. Let's actually go back to the schedule just to refresh everybody's memory. We've got Docker Desktop next, and we're going to talk about GitHub Actions, then Docker and Kubernetes, and then we're going to tell some stories that are pretty cool to wrap it up. Let's see.
Stories, not stores, right?
Stories. Did I say stores in there?
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute, are we selling stuff? Is it like are we opening up a virtual swag store?
Yeah. Let's see. This is this is what I can do for live. I can just edit this. There we go. That's a little better. All right. Because we'll be seeing that again. All right. Let's see if we have one or two more questions. Is there any chance of bringing the Compose, this is more about Compose, the Compose version 2 and 3 YAML files into line? I realize there would be a lot of magic required, but it would be really nice not to have to think about versions in Compose.
Yes, it is on the right. There's actually an issue on the Compose repo about that. It's definitely something we'd like to do because I really hate the magic numbers at the top of the file. It's just like we're used to kind of not doing interfaces like that, and people just cargo cult a number, and it's really confusing. So we spend some time looking at the differences and working out what we can do there. So so there's going to be a whole bunch of work going on with Compose at the moment, and that's one of the things I really like to fix because it just makes it really weird for users to have to put a special magic number at the top of your file.
Yeah, or forget to check if you're on the latest version. And I mean, Kubernetes has that same challenge too with the API versions. It's like I always forget that I'm in a beta, and now I need to use the other version that I didn't know was there or something. So yeah, it's these infrastructure versions are challenging. Someone else asked a question. So would this be an appropriate thing for the roadmap for someone to put on the roadmap as to an idea that would basically link to the Compose repo idea of Compose merging of versions?
Sure. Yeah. But also do definitely comment on the issue on Compose. I can't remember which issue number it is, but it's we put it up a little bit while ago because we were discussing this internally, and we'd really like to fix that.
All right, last one. What are you most excited about on the Docker roadmap?
I mean, I can't really pick one. I mean, that would be showing preferential treatment. Man, all of them? Yes. No, I mean, I think there's a few things. So the Docker Compose and Go, I think, is something that's going to be pretty exciting as we move that forward. I'm actually really excited about that. I'm really excited about I know I keep throwing this cliffhanger out there, but like I am so excited about the future of Compose. All up. In that respect, and then we are doing some very cool things in Docker Desktop as well. So some new tutorials making the UX better. So there's some really cool things happening there that I'm excited about.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the thing I'm most excited about in the really short term is WSL2 going live. It's almost ready to ship. Please test the previews, and you can now run. It's on with Docker Desktop on Windows Home, which is really amazing if you have WSL2 installed. So we're really excited about that, and we're really looking forward to it going GA as soon as it goes GA with Microsoft. So that's the nearest term thing I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And I will sign up for the community Slack. We are working on a new type of a developer preview program for Docker Desktop. That's an early access. So go sign up for the Docker community Slack. We're going to be picking some folks to help us test out some of these new cool things coming up.
Let's see. Slack sign up URL. Which one is that? I can never remember. It's like Dockerly / somebody's gonna.
Hold on. Yeah, we'll have to share out the community Slack is, I think it's just Docker. It's dockercommunity.slack.com is the.
Yeah, but you got to sign up somewhere else.
That's true. Yeah, we'll paste it in somewhere along the line, or I'll put it into the chat.
Yeah,
sometime today.
Jenny will have it to us in a second. She's in the.
Yes.
We're in Slack right now discussing all of the questions and yeah. Okay, so it's docker.ly. So it's okay, dockr.ly/Slack. Let me just edit that on the screen and then we'll put that in here. So yeah, Slack is docker.ly/Slack. And there you go. All right, putting it on the screen right there. Oh, it's not. Now I'm not centered.
Isn't it doc? It's doc or without
well, how did I put the? I'm so glad you guys are here to keep me straight. All right, there we go. So yeah, if you're not on the community Slack, it's a fantastic way. There's a lot of channels, but if you're concerned about a certain project, whether it's Compose or Docker Desktop or whatever, there's channels for all that stuff, and you'll often find other team members and maintainers and members of the community in there active and helping out. There's also the forums.docker.com for a less live chat experience. If you have a long issue and thing you want to talk about in long form, the forums is the best way to go there. If you're not going to be on Stack Overflow, the Docker forums are another great way to do that. Let's go back. So yeah, I know for me, WSL2, if I got a voice in there, WSL2 is exciting for me. I'm a Mac user, but I'm also like watching everyone on these Windows machines that keep getting more and more cool things on their Windows, like WSL2.
You're getting jealous.
And I'm now wishing like maybe I should have bought a Surface instead of my new MacBook that I just bought. Like, you know.
we are putting a lot of investment in Docker Desktop for Windows. So for all of you Windows users out there, we got your back. We are investing heavily in that part of Docker Desktop. So keep using it, and more importantly, keep going to the public roadmap and telling us what you want. We think that's really important.
Yeah. In fact, we got in the actual roadmap itself under the almost there. Actually, under the developer preview Edge version. So if you're a Docker Desktop user, rather, there is stable and Edge. So Edge is kind of like beta, but I'll be honest, I've always run Edge and rarely have issues. To me, Edge is more like new ideas and features a little bit before everyone else. Obviously, if you're in an enterprise and you're worried about production stable software, stay on the stable version. But if you're someone who's an independent developer, or this is your home machine or whatever, and you can make your own rules, I kind of play with Edge. So Edge has right now some of those. We'll talk about the WS2 stuff in a minute because we're going to have a whole gang on the show to talk about Docker Desktop and WSL. But other things that just happened were a new update to Compose. So I wanted to mention that Compose, by the way, has build kit support now. So we don't have a specific segment on the show about that. But if you're someone who's Justin here recently just mentioned the build kit stuff in Docker and how the new way to build Docker images is really great, and it's maybe not obvious to you. So you maybe want to go searching around. Even here on YouTube, I've done some videos, at least 3 or 4 videos on build kit. Docker's put some stuff up on BuildKit, and it's now built into Docker, but now Compose can do it as well. So you get faster builds, you get multi-architecture builds, you get all these nice features. And if you check out the Docker Compose GitHub page, you can see all the release notes for that. So that's in here. I'm just going to read off a couple other ones while we're waiting for some more questions. Is JSON considered to use instead of YAML or YAML for Docker files and Docker Compose? So I guess we're talking about file format standards for Docker and Compose.
You can always use JSON instead of YAML because JSON is a valid subset of YAML. Not many people actually realize that. If you like writing JSON better, you can just write JSON. So YAML is just designed to be easier, mostly for people to write. But if you want to generate JSON on a computer out of a program, then that's great. You can feed it straight in.
Yeah. Yeah, and Docker file formats are you have to use a Docker file.
Dockerfile is its own thing. That's basically shell script with a few tweaks. But if you want to dig down and build different things with that, you want to look into BuildKit.
All right. Let's see. Can I use? Well, this is a Docker desktop question. Is there any plans for Docker desktop on Linux? A question we get this question every time we have a conversation about Docker desktop.
I know. So, and in fact, I believe that was also submitted on the public roadmap as an issue. So right. Here's what I'll say. We need folks to jump in and either upvote or downvote this thing. So we want to make sure that if we invest in this, because it is a pretty heavy investment to do it, that we're really going to get a lot of people using it. So I'll throw the challenge back out to everyone in the community. If this is something you really want, go into the roadmap and upvote it. And if we start seeing some really significant upvoting of that, we're going to put some significant investigation into it.
Well, it's one of the things that we need to ask some survey questions about as well, because we're not exactly sure what percentage of people are actually using Linux on a daily basis for their Docker work. So that's one of the things. It's very hard to get a good feel for that. And historically we've assumed that Linux people kind of can install things themselves, but we know that that's not also really entirely true, and that a lot of people really do want the full Docker desktop experience. So we're very sympathetic to it. People internally want it too. So please say it on the roadmap and let us know that you want it.
Yeah, this is actually this is interesting because we've had like Docker desktop for Windows and for Mac repos because that existed, but there was never like a Docker desktop there wasn't a proper repo to ever talk about this because it didn't exist. But I mean, from a community member, I can say for the people that are Linux fans in the chat, I sympathize with you, and I can tell you that ever since Docker desktop was created, even before that with Toolbox, there was a small set of the community where we're all saying, hey, it would be great if you're a Docker desktop user, if you're a Linux desktop user rather, with a GUI, if you actually have an IDE on Linux, could there be some IDE features? And if you look back and you think about Docker desktop, it started as a way to solve a lot of the problems with trying to be on these other operating systems that aren't Linux and just use Docker, right? They were trying to map files in across file systems and sharing the same command line interface that's secure to the connection and all the things that, starting up the VM if it has to be started for running that thing in Mac and Windows. So if you think about it, to that question, a lot of that stuff is just not necessary in Linux, but it actually turns out there's lots of people on Linux that love it as a desktop, and we've never really, it's been a topic at every Docker Captains Summit with the Docker leaders and VPs and stuff. It's been a conversation with the Docker Captains and the Docker community leaders, and we're always talking about it. It always comes up in every Q&A. But yeah, that's a great question you bring up, Justin, is like, we've never really got an accurate understanding of how many people want this and how many people are definitely using it. Because now, with WSL2 coming out, if you're on Windows, granted, if you're a Linux desktop user, you're probably not using anything with Windows unless you use Linux at home and like a Doc or Windows at work or whatever. Yeah. So, a lot of Linux users are converting to Windows. It's usually the other way around. But, Linux is getting so good on Windows now, and you're getting like this first class support on Windows. There's a small, what I'm hoping is still that small little percentage of people that are saying, hey, I still use Docker Linux. I personally like Mint, the desktop's on Mint with the Cinnamon interface. And so, but I am a Mac day-to-day user. So yeah, I'm going to upvote it, but I'm not technically one of the ones that needs it. I'm not your audience.
Wait. Don't cook the books, Bret. Come on.
I'm only one vote though. That's the power of the internet. Like you can't tell whose votes are votes, right? They're just votes. So we're gonna have, so if I don't know.
And no spoofing IPs or MAC addresses
Right.
while voting.
Right.
While voting.
Right. It does count against your GitHub. So you would have to create a bunch of GitHub accounts. And I'm pretty sure GitHub is pretty good at sniffing out bad accounts. So good luck to those of you who are trying to figure out the system. But I'll upvote it anyway because I think Linux people love GUIs too when they're on their desktop. So especially in my courses, everyone's always trying to do Raspberry Pi desktops. I think that's like a thing right now, especially with the new Pis that are more powerful. And I'm sure that they would all love it too because they always seem to like want to get rid of their desktops and just have a tiny little, thingy.
Small thing.
Yeah, a little tiny thing. All right, so we've got 5 minutes left in this show, and I think we've gotten through all the major questions. One last question, and you two might be some of the best for answering this. I've been in IT support for 13 years, and I'm now working as a support manager. I now want to change my career to Docker. Is it advisable? Let's give some career advice. Why not?
Yeah. Yes. Start by connecting with the Justins on LinkedIn. I mean, maybe we should make a sideshow, by the way, a Docker-like sideshow called the Justins. That would be Bret can MC it. So yes, because we are very much one of the folks that we want to help bring into Docker, but not only help you kick off your development career, et cetera. We're putting a lot of effort into our UX and into Docker Desktop specifically for folks like you, to help you get started, to help you onboard, to help you, build your first container, push your first container, create your first repo, ship your first build. We're putting a lot of thought across documentation, on onboarding tutorials, and desktop into that experience. So absolutely.
And it's never too late to change the direction of your career a bit, and demand for Docker skills is still growing enormously. Containers are being adopted by more and more companies, and so it's absolutely a great direction to go in.
Yeah, and remember, worldwide, we're still at the beginning of this thing. Most companies on the planet are still building monolithically, shipping in VMs, 3-tier apps. So there's a long way to go in this market. So if you're thinking about a career change into this space, there's no time like the present. Yep.
Yeah. Just DevOps in general, and the trends I'm seeing are that, like on my courses on Udemy, people are, the word Docker is actually still not peaked. Like people are searching more Docker than they were a year ago, which was more than a year before that. So the interest in containers is not going away, for sure. All right, now comes the prizes. That was a great question.
Woo!
We don't normally talk about jobs on these, but that's a great question. We weren't getting paid to do this. Most of us wouldn't be doing this. All right. Let's do. I don't know what I'm doing here. Yeah, I'm clicking the wrong thing. All right. Let's go to the prize. I got too many little thingies on screen. Let's see. Why is my roadmap still up? All right.
Wait, what just happened? Now
you're not here. Yeah, I got to pull you in. I got to pull you in. All right. There we go. All right, and we get our prize wheel up because the internet's being fickle today. Come on. All right. This is the Whale of Fortune. So you're here today to answer the next trivia question in chat, and the winner will get whatever the prize wheel gives you. So let's see who's going to be the first winner. Let's see. What was the name of the company that evolved into Docker? This is some old lore, some old history. What was the name of the company that evolved into Docker?
7 years ago.
7 years ago. Oh, let's see. Oh, my goodness. Everybody up front. I think Dave is first. Wow. Good job, Dave. Hello. He's a community leader. All right, Dave, let's see what you win.
Oh, and it actually spins.
Try and spin it.
Yeah. There you go. Thanks, Vanna. Hoodie, nice. All right, you get from the swag bag, you get the hoodie. And so you're going to email Jenny, who you know, Jenny@docker.com, Dave, and you will get a nice little prize in the mail whenever shipments begin on the internet. whenever things can get to you someday.
I would bring it to you myself, but
someday,
situations.
Yes, yeah, situations. All right. So another successful. Thank you for everyone that everyone got that one really fast. So I wasn't sure. But now we got all these people. We got hundreds of .clouds. All right, good job. RIP .cloud. All right, so thank you so much for being on the show. And thank everyone for the questions. Of course, you can reach these guys in the community chat, and they will be around. The Justins are always heavily involved with the community and with the Docker Captains program, the community leaders. So Justin Cormack is like, I think he's got like, if there was rankings on the Slack for how many questions you've answered, I think you would be number one. Yeah.
I've also got the Justin name because we.
Oh yeah.
But you've got the Justin name on our internal Slack.
Oh, that's not confusing.
Yeah, we actually we had a battle royale. We played a pretty happening game of Uno to decide who was gonna get the handle. Nice.
So now to just keep people confused, depending on which Slack they're in, they're gonna get the different Justin. Great.
Right.
Well, thanks again for being here, and we'll have you on the show again someday. And we'll see you
Absolutely.
at DockerCon.
Thank you all.
See you soon.
All right.
See you soon.
All right. Let's see. We're waiting on guests. All right. Okay. Let's do this one. No, let's see. Got to click the buttons in the right order. All right. And now we're going to be talking about Docker Desktop. Get the right title up there. Oh, and I also wanted to put this like little DockerCon thing up here while we're talking about it. And then if people are asking about Slack, might as well put the little Slacky thing over here. It's kind of squished. Oh well, it don't matter. All right, well, now we have a whole brand new team here to talk about stuff. All right, so you may have seen these guys on the show before if you've watched my show on my YouTube channel, because they've been there at least once, if not multiple times. We have Elton Stoneman, who's now an independent consultant and Docker captain. Used to work at Docker. And let's see, we got over here Ben Gotch, the product manager at Docker, one of the product managers, specifically for Docker Desktop. And I don't know where Simon's at. Oh, there he is. Let me bring him in. And Simon. And I am going to take a back seat on this one and let Elton run the show, because he has been around forever and knows everyone. and so take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Cool. So hey guys, how you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Good
Yeah,
stuff.
very
So,
good, thank you.
so before, so I'm a Docker captain, and I do a bunch of stuff kind of like Bret. So I write the books and I do the courses and all that sort of stuff. But I worked at Docker for 3 years with various people in different roles, and I got to work with these two guys. So Ben, I worked with him for about a year because he joined after me, and he's the product manager for, well, lots of stuff now, because it used to be just desktop, but now it's Compose and probably Hub as well, is it?
No, so desktop, Compose, Docker CLI, and a bit of the Docker engine as well.
Just a bit.
In my spare time.
Oh, okay, cool. And Simon, who is one of the original kind of engineers from the early days.
The early days, I don't know. I joined on 2016.
Okay, well,
yeah, September 2016. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And so Simon and I worked together because my background is all like before I got into the container revolution, I was a .NET consultant building like these big, horrible enterprise projects that I now spend my time showing people how to break into tiny pieces. So most of my work is with Windows. I'm happy with the Linux stuff too, but that's when kind of Simon and I worked together. And he's doing all this fantastic stuff with WSL2 that we're going to kind of get to see some of today in this session. But we had a really good question when the guys were talking about the roadmap. Someone said, I use Docker on Linux. Like, what does Docker Desktop give me? And that's something which is people who are new to the Docker community. Like I hear about Docker all the time. I go and search for it. I'm seeing about Linux containers. Like, what should I do? Should I do Docker Desktop or should I do Linux Community Edition? So like, Ben, do you want to just talk us through what the different options are and what Desktop gives you over and above the ordinary engine?
Yeah, absolutely. So as most people who have got started with Docker know, or people who are new will find out soon enough, Docker itself is a daemon and it runs exclusively on Linux. And a bit on Windows. It was originally created on Linux. So to use the Linux engine, which is what most people mean when they're talking about Docker, when they're talking about Docker containers, you need to have a Linux instance to run that on. Now on Mac and Windows, it's not there. You don't have that Linux kernel, have that Linux operating system to interact with. So the main purpose of Docker Desktop is to bring you sort of a lightweight Linux VM that runs Docker Engine and has all those bits pre-installed for you. And then what it also does, it does all the magical plumbing together to plumb that in with your file system, with your networking, and plumb that through to your terminal so that you can use that Docker experience like you were working on Linux, but from Windows or Mac. So that's sort of the...
Sorry, we haven't done this much before. But it uses the native hypervisor. So on Windows, it uses currently Hyper-V, but it will be WSL2, and on the Mac it uses HyperKit. So it's super integrated and it takes care of it all for you. So if you want to, you can manually install VirtualBox and you can create your own Linux VM and you can install Docker on that. And then on your Windows machine, you can fiddle about with the Docker command line. But Docker Desktop just sets it all up for you. And of course, it also, at the click of a button, you can deploy a Kubernetes cluster on your laptop. And that's the other super cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of where we came from was that history of Docker Toolbox, which sort of bundled together VirtualBox and machine for creating your image, and then it sort of did all that plumbing for you. But it just wasn't as stable, it wasn't as integrated as what we tried to create with Docker Desktop, and using the native hypervisor. So it was that bit easier. For most people, we know that that's then been a challenge for Windows Home users where you don't have Hyper-V. But we're very excited with WSL2. That WSL2 will bring the ability for Docker Desktop with the WSL2 backend to work on Windows Home when that goes GA, and I think that's what Seymour's going to show us in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that Docker Desktop now has is we've actually now added a UI as well. So we started building the UI in there to sort of allow you to interact and manage your containers, and we're looking to sort of build that out at the moment. Again, using the roadmap to try and get some input on ideas of what people would like to see there.
Cool. Are you going to show us some demos of this stuff?
Yeah, go on.
Cool. And then we'll come back to Simon to talk about the cool new WSL stuff.
Yeah,
so for everyone who's saying, what is WSL? I have no idea what you're talking about. It's the Windows subsystem for Linux. So what it gives you, it's not a Docker thing. It's a Microsoft thing. It's a Windows feature in the current versions of Windows 10 that lets you run Linux inside Windows. And it's like kind of not really a virtual machine. So you don't need Hyper-V to have this stuff, which is what enables Docker to run inside that Windows subsystem. So you don't need a VM. Okay. Cool.
kind of don't need Hyper-V. Kind of. Okay, so I'll just run through the basics of what's in Docker Desktop. I won't do the jazzy bit. I'll leave that for Simon. So the demo gods are good and it shares the right screen. Cool. Let's go for that one. Then get rid of the meta. So the question is, has that worked?
Right, still here. He's in the background, clicking buttons.
Lurking.
Share. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, I think. Boop. Boop. Make it smaller.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, cool.
All right, you're good.
Look, that was seamless.
It's magic.
Well-oiled. Absolutely magic. Cool. So there's sort of two ways to interact with Docker Desktop, or three ways. You've got the UI, you've got what we lovingly call the whale menu, and then you have terminal. So I'm running an internal build, so hopefully nothing will break. So within Docker Desktop, as we said, you've got that VM which is running on the background on Mac that's using HyperKit, and that's running my Docker engine. So along with that, we have our UI. We've just added sort of a little tutorial for new people when they get started. This will be coming in, I think, a couple of weeks probably for new users. So when you first load up, I can go through and I get some instructions how to sort of go through and run my first container, which I'm already running because I don't trust the demo gods. And then within that UI, I can sort of go in, inspect my container, see what's going on, and then from command line, have a look and we can see what containers I've got running.
Do you want to just bump up the font on your command line there, Ben?
Point. Thank
Good
you.
man.
I can see what containers I've got running. I can see, yep, I've got the same thing running. And we can shell into that container if we want. Use a different terminal. See what's in there. And we can always, if we want, also enable Kubernetes. But I'm not going to do this one live, as it takes a minute or so just to download Kubernetes before it enables it, and that will also mess up my video.
So Kubernetes, all the Kubernetes bits run in Docker containers anyway. So when you click that button, it'll download all the images, start up all your Kubernetes stuff. We've got a Kubernetes session coming up later on in the day, so we'll show you a bunch more of that stuff now. But the button that's grayed out there that says Reset Kubernetes Cluster, that's one of the best features of Docker Desktop.
Core features. Yeah, we did. It's interesting. We actually moved the Reset Kubernetes cluster to just in the diagnostics window, and it was probably the only thing we got feedback on when we changed the UI. Was everyone asked us where the Reset Kubernetes cluster button had gone, and I didn't realize people used it that much. But then I went and looked at the data, and pretty much, yeah. So one of the top features is the Kubernetes section. Who knew? So you just always check the data before you make changes. So.
Cool. So what you've got here is then you've got a virtual machine that's running somewhere on your Mac, but you don't have any way to interface with that. It's being completely managed for you by Docker Desktop, and the views you've got here with the command line when you run Docker commands, that's talking to the Docker engine that's running in your VM, and that fancy view you showed us with the container UI, that's looking at the same information but showing it in a different way.
Yep, absolutely. So.
Very cool.
Same as the Justins before me. If people have feedback or questions about features they'd like to see or things they'd like to see changed in Docker Desktop, please do add comments and bits to our roadmap. That was shared earlier. I think I saw one of the questions in the channel, which I did answer in the channel, was what's sort of coming up next? What are you looking at doing in particular for Mac? Because we've done quite a bit on Windows recently, as we recently swapped out the file system interface we use on Windows between that VM and Windows. We moved from Samba to gRPC and Fuse, as that gave us some performance benefits and fixed quite a few bugs for us. And we've obviously got WSL2 coming up as well. For Mac users, we're going to be looking at actually improving the file system performance on Mac next. So I know that a lot of you have uploaded the file system performance, particularly with sort of some web native languages like PHP Symfony. It can be very slow when you've got a large number of files. So we're going to look at adding caching into Docker Desktop using the mutagen, using a plugin called mutagen. So watch out for that coming sort of out in the Edge channel over the next sort of couple of months. We'll try and get that out as soon as we can.
Cool. Very good. While you're here, Ben, can you open your settings menu? I know you're on a preview build, so I'm sorry if this breaks. Just to show enter resources, just to show people where you do have control over this thing. So by default, it's pretty conservative, isn't it? It doesn't use too much memory or too much CPU, but you can bump that. Like if you want to run Kubernetes and Istio and all the fancy new stuff, you're going to come here and you're going to bump up the resources in your VM. And a lot of people don't quite, because it makes it so simple, people who are completely new to Docker don't necessarily appreciate that there is this VM, that you are running Linux containers, because you can't run the container natively on the Mac. Although, as Justin said, you can if you're really interested. But this is where you go and tweak that stuff.
Yeah, and we have heard as well the feedback that it can be a little frustrating for users that a lot of these resources can appear fully consumed when Docker Desktop is running. Some of that is a limitation of HyperGit. And that it does allocate a lot of these resources fully for us while Docker Desktop is running. But then those users and users on Windows who are frustrated by a similar thing, I'd say look out for WSL2, as WSL2 has sort of that more dynamic resource allocation. So it should, or the flip of this is that Windows now supports sort of not doing this. So with WSL2, you don't have to assign your resources, and it will scale or scale down as you're using it, which is very nice.
Yeah, and the from the user experience point of view, Docker Desktop on Windows is the same. It looks
Correct.
the same, and it behaves the same.
Yeah.
You can run Windows containers too, but that's something
That's
that's a different thing. Cool,
Yeah.
Excellent. Are we good with the demo? Should we switch back to the fancy new stuff?
So I have to remember how to exit the shared screen though, because that's what I didn't practice.
Cool.
That one? I think yes.
Yeah, looks like we're good. Excellent. So Simon, we're gonna have you do us a demo in a minute, but the thing that I found with the WSL2 stuff is that when people talk about it, it just sounds horribly complicated. Because when you start digging into it, like you can do all sorts of kind of crazy stuff with your own kernels and that sort of stuff. And anyone who's not from a Linux internals background, maybe taking a step back and saying like this stuff seems like it's not for me. But actually, the way you've integrated it with Docker Desktop, it's almost invisible. It's just much better. Is that fair?
Yes, actually for us it solves a lot of problems, like not having to use the Hyper-V APIs, which is not really APIs, but PowerShell automation things that we need to run inside Docker Desktop. And it solves also the whole VM optimization thing, like being WSL2 lightweight VM boots in under 2 seconds. On Windows, it has been really, really optimized, and with parts inside the Linux kernel itself, but also on the Windows side. And that's something that we actually can do. And the fact that Microsoft did that for us, and not only for us, but for anybody wanting to use a Linux environment on their Windows machine, it's just a very good thing for us. And yeah, it solves a whole category of problems, and it brings pretty interesting new features.
Yeah, and fair to say, as you said, it's not just a Docker thing, but I think I say we, but it's not really we anymore. Docker was one of the first consumers of WSL, because you had that, like the very first Microsoft demo was, look, and here's Docker running on WSL. So that was pretty cool. And the distinction then between WSL, which is GA now in Windows 10, and then there's this WSL2, which is coming down the line. So what's the difference there?
Yeah, so WSL2 is coming in the next version of Windows 10, the next feature update. It will be available probably late April or something like that. And And our plan is to have to switch to the WSL2 engine by default when you install this build of Windows. So clearly for us, it's the future of Docker Desktop, and going forward, it will be our main supported backend for Windows.
Okay, so WSL2 is like more performant, better APIs for you to use, or?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and overall, it's not yet the case, but in the longer term, it will also make our products much less complex, just because for everything it solves. For now, it's not the case because we still need to maintain our Hyper-V code base.
Yeah, so that makes it more complex.
Yeah, so for now it's more complex, but the long-term vision is to allow us to get a lighter architecture.
Okay, cool. And we're about to see a demo, but for people's expectations, what you're about to show us, if they're on the insider ring on Windows and they've got Windows 10 and they can get WSL2, then they can do this with Docker Desktop, the Edge release.
Yes, if you install a Windows Insider build, either slow or fast ring, you'll get the possibility to install WSL2 on it and to run Docker Desktop with WSL2 engine. And actually, both on stable and Edge branch of Docker Desktop, we have the engine now available on both branches.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so time for the demo, or?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely. Share that screen.
Yeah, so let me share my screen then. And so the first thing that I want to show you is that my demo machine.
Oh, let's just let Bret do his magic with the screen sharing, because there's about 15 of us on the screen.
Yeah, let me know when it's good.
Seymour, is this just you showing off your home machine again and how powerful it is?
Yeah.
All right, you're good. With that 8,000 resolution you got there.
Oh, yeah.
So you got 32 gig of RAM. Oh, very good.
Yeah, that's actually my home gaming PC. So it's running Windows 10 Home. And that's the thing that I wanted to show. I didn't want to brag about this CPU or anything. But anyway, so...
Can you zoom in a few more times on terminal, please?
Yes, I will do that.
Cool.
So first, if you look at the settings on Docker Desktop, you can see that I can't uncheck the WSL2 checkbox because I'm running Windows Home, and Windows Home doesn't ship with Hyper-V. It just ships with, but it ships with WSL2. So that's the way we run on Home. Also, I can't switch either to Windows containers because Windows containers is a Windows 10 Pro feature only. So on Home, I'm stuck with Linux containers. So something I'd like to show you is that I can access. Here is a PowerShell window, and I can actually do a Docker info or any Docker commands. And as you can see, WSL2 itself uses dynamic resource allocation, so I can actually access all my CPUs and almost all my memory from the Docker engine. If we look at this guy here and see this VMM process, which is actually the WSL2 lightweight VM process, you can see that it doesn't use my 25 gigs, but currently it uses 4,000 something. So what I'd like to show you is that there is multiple ways to use Docker with WSL2. First is from my PowerShell thing here, and I can use Docker Run, Docker Compose, etc. But I can also go to my Ubuntu WSL distro there. And let's go to my home directory. And from there, I can also run Docker info. Sorry, by the way, for the background noise. I have kids at home, like many of you, I guess.
Like many of us, yeah.
And the home is a little small, so yeah, we've done what we can, but
they're excited to be on the show. I mean, I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here I am on my Ubuntu WSL distro, and I can access the same daemon, same installation, and I can do interesting things like spin up a container, like from there. Yeah.
Double
If
dash.
I-
Yeah.
double dash. And it's the same instance, so I can actually, from my Ubuntu thing, I can do a Docker exec. Oops. -it, and I'm in my container, and I interact with the same daemon from both environments. But all those things quite interesting. Like if you want to port a project from your actual code base running on Windows, and you want to port that on Linux and port your build script on Linux and things like that, you can do it piece by piece, because you are able to talk to the same daemon from both environments.
So you didn't have to set anything up special in your Ubuntu distro, then that just happens because of Docker Desktop.
Yes, what we do, if you look at if I do a which Docker there and get info about my Docker executable here, you can see that it's actually a symlink to something that has been deployed by Docker Desktop.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so actually you don't have to install any apt package or anything. It's just everything is deployed by Docker itself. And although you can also access your Kubernetes in the same way. So if I do kubectl get all, it works both from Windows or from your distro, and we ship the same kubectl in the same way as a kubectl and all Kubernetes client-side tools for you. So something now that I'd like to show you is the impact that running from Windows or from WSL has. So for this I will show you a development branch of WordPress, and when you are a developer on the WordPress project, what you do is that you bind the WordPress source code inside a container, and so just let us just run this guy and run and start. So it's actually using Docker Compose to spin up a bunch of containers. And for now, I'm doing this from the Windows side. So let me go to localhost 8889, which should be my WordPress, and we'll use some kind of a poor man benchmark to see some interesting performance aspect. So if I hit F5 on this page, you can see that it takes between 80 milliseconds, and sometimes it's much higher. It's like 300. And the reason for this being so long, because it's just a very small PHP page, is that PHP must access the files that are hosted on the Windows side, and so it can't rely on the Linux kernel cache for the file system, and so it needs to ask Windows every time it wants to check if a file if its cache is up to date. It needs to ask Windows if the file has changed under the hood, and that can be particularly slow. In this example, it's still workable, But we have had clients for which PHP development is completely undoable because they have huge projects with huge include graphs and things like that. The interesting thing is that if I do the same thing, so let me just first stop that from the Windows side. But what I did is that I cloned the exact same WordPress development environment into my Ubuntu distro. And let me do the same thing. So npm run of :start. And it will do exactly the same thing. But the only thing that it changed is that the bindmon source lives inside WSL. I'm in my home directory inside Ubuntu. And now if I do F5, you can see that it's almost always under 20 milliseconds. And yeah, and it's much faster. And the reason why is that actually the Docker daemon runs in the same utility VM as your own Ubuntu distro. It's not running inside Ubuntu. If I do something like ps-ix, you can see dockerd there because it's running actually in another namespace, but it runs inside the same VM on top of the same kernel, and so when I bindmont my WordPress develop directory, it's actually it can use the Linux kernel cache for the file system, and so it's much quicker, and yeah, it makes things completely workable for every PHP or Node scenario where Docker Desktop was a bit complicated to set up before. So yes, please, once you enable WSL2 engine on Docker Desktop, please make sure that you put your source files inside your WSL distro and bindmont from there instead of bindmonting from Windows.
Pro tip.
Yes, that's actually the best. That's the most important piece of work that we did. It's bindmont performance.
Cool. Okay, that's super cool. So thanks very much for that, Simon. So so a couple of questions were coming in. Just to reiterate, yes, you can run this on Windows Home, but you need to be on the insider ring, slow or fast.
Yes.
Yes. And then just install Docker Desktop, either the stable or the Edge, and you'll get this stuff. So for people who have been using Windows Home for years, like Docker hasn't been an option, welcome to the club.
Yes, the only thing I think we didn't ship Docker Windows Home support yet on stable.
Okay,
it's Edge only, but for Pro Insider, you can use either stable or Edge, and you get access to both the Docker engine and Kubernetes. And actually the same exact features as what we had with Hyper-V, plus this bindmont support. Which is really cool.
Fantastic. So just a quick practical question. So when if you're following your advice or your insistence to use the file system inside WSL2, if I'm like doing my normal stuff with Windows and then some dev with Docker Desktop and WSL2, I can't see those files in Windows Explorer. I can only get to them from WSL.
Yes, that's something that Microsoft has been working on. And actually, I think they are planning for the release of WSL2 to actually add in the quick in the Explorer quick access view. They will add your WSL distro there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Excellent.
They showed that actually. They have shown that at WSL-Conf.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well that answers that question. So Bret, I think we're pretty much out of time, are we? Okay, cool. Well, thanks very much, guys. That was excellent. Great to hear from the. Oh yeah, we're gonna have the prize giveaway. So yeah. You fire up that little spinny thing.
Yeah.
I noticed that no one's won a copy of my book yet.
Oh.
Disappointing.
Let's see. We're Where'd Simon go? There we go. All right, where's
Oh, there
our
we all are.
where's
Look at
our
that.
wheel? Come on, wheel. It likes to disappear on me. For those of you geeks out there wondering how this works, this is actually like an iframe on top of a video stream, and it has a transparent background, but it likes to, and you know, if you're really into this streaming stuff, while we're all geeking out for a moment, I have this little Stream Deck thing that actually has all the buttons, and so I have a button to make it spin and make a sound. So.
Well, I think the real geeks want to know whether you've got a hardware random number generator to make sure this is genuinely random.
I'm depending on the internet for the reliable random numbers. You have just as much of a chance as getting Elton's book as the super swag box or the box of nothing. But something tells me that if you win, you win cool stuff regardless. Like you'll get some good stuff in the mail. All right. What's the next question? I should have wrote these down so you guys can read them. Let's see. At which conference was Docker first shared with the world? At which conference was Docker first shared with the world? Captains are not eligible. Cheaters. Should have said that. Oh my goodness. Whoa. All right. Looks like we got a winner. Let's see who the first winner is. That's not a captain. Sorry, captains. You already get so much swag. I think you're good. All right. I'm going to say I think he meant to type. This person, I believe, meant to type PyCon, the Python conference. I'm going to take that as the winner. All right.
Whoa! You need the year. You got to have the year.
Oh, no, I said at which conference? I didn't say what year. At which conference was Docker first shared with the world? But that's a good point. 7 years ago. This month, 7 years ago. In fact, if you YouTube search later after this show, you're not allowed to leave yet. If you YouTube on this show, you will. If you search, I think PyCon. Docker Solomon Hikes, I think maybe you will find the original 7-minute pitch where Solomon, one of the founders, gets up and pitches it for 7 minutes. And what's funny is he gets cut off. That's my favorite part. They're like, "Okay, you run out of time, sir. Your lightning talk has to go." And everybody's just sitting there going, "Mind's blown." You know, it's a fun little blast in the past. All right, let's rotate. Let's spin that wheel. What do we got? Wheel of Fortune.
It's got to be Elton's book this time, right?
Nigel's book. Oh. All right, you get a copy of Nigel's book, and I'm sure that Elton will throw in a copy of his as well, just for good measure. And so you're going to email Jenny. Let me get rid of that thing there. So Jenny at docker.com over there. Email that up for your winnings. And let's see if we have any. Elton's video is frozen. Maybe if I take it away and edit back. Can't have a. Nope, still frozen. Oh, well. All right, let's see. Maybe you just have to join and come back because you're frozen on my Skype too.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. All right, so thank you all. Thank you, Ben and Simon, for joining. I think Elton's going to stay on. And
I'm going to leave and come back and see if I'm not frozen.
That's right. So you can take a break real quick. And while you all are taking a break, I'm going to go to the schedule, and I'll talk about that real quick. So thank you all for being here. And all right, let me. I'm going to fix this schedule too. All right. Up next is Docker Hub with GitHub Actions. I don't know if it fits all in there. Something like that. All right. Let's see. Who's up next? Can I go?
Yep. That is hopefully it's the true, yeah. Otherwise, I might be in a bit of trouble with this conversation.
Oh, I was muted.
Too, I suppose. I think Elton is back.
All right, so I have to reintroduce you because my mic strangely got muted for no particular reason. So this is Nick Adcock from Docker. He's a software engineer that works with GitHub Actions and a lot of other things. And where are you Skyping from today?
I'm in Cambridge in the UK.
Cambridge. So now this is a UK show. I'm the visitor. And I got to bring Elton back in here. All right.
I've changed my shirt to signify that it's a different session.
This is a new day. This is actually a different Elton. Yeah. The other one was the show host. Now he's back to guest and doing the demos and all the fun stuff. All right. So why are we here? Up at the top, in case y'all weren't paying attention to the schedule, we are following the schedule, and we're now talking about GitHub Actions, which Docker, if you're following Docker's blog, they recently announced their official, obviously you were able to use GitHub Actions with Docker all along, but the official thing was announced, was it last week? 2 weeks ago? It was sometime this month. And let's talk about it. Well, first off, for those of us that are not GitHub gurus, what is GitHub Actions?
So I'm going to do the kind of intro stuff, and then Nick's going to do the really cool stuff with the Docker Actions. So GitHub Actions is you can use it as a CI/CD pipeline, and it's built right into GitHub. And so you, as part of your repo, you check in a pipeline file, which is a YAML file, because you can't do anything unless it's YAML nowadays. If you're familiar with the way Jenkins moved to this pipeline idea with a Jenkins file that says do this, do this, do this, it's a very similar idea. I'll show you something. I got a bunch of demos, so I'll show you this stuff. And if you've got inside your repo, you've got a folder called .github, and inside there are some of these workflow YAML files. When you push, or there are various triggers you can use, but when somebody pushes, like kicks off a workflow, like typically that's gonna build your code, run some tests, push your built images to Docker Hub or whatever. So it's it's the whole kind of end to end, but it's part, and in reality, it all runs on Azure stuff. So it's all running hosted for you. They've got a very generous free tier, so you can kind of use all this stuff for free, building all your projects, and that's private projects as well as open source ones. And what's really cool about it is the steps to execute in your workflow. You've got a variety of options. So on the hosted runners, so every time your workflow runs, there's a VM somewhere, gets spun up, allocated to you, runs your job, and then gets killed. On that VM, there's a bunch of stuff installed. Like there's the .NET Core SDK in case you're building .NET Core. There's a bunch of tools installed, but one of them is Docker. So if you want something as part of your build workflow that isn't on that runner, you just build a Docker image for it, and then you run whatever you like as part of your workflow inside a container. So it's super flexible. So if I attempt to share my screen, let's see, I've got two screens up.
So far, the internet has actually cooperated today. I'm pretty excited.
Wow. Okay. So I've clicked a button, and we'll see what happens now.
Let's see what happens with this button. Wrong screen.
I've got. That's not my brick wall.
Let's see. Boom, boom. Oh, and of course, green screen again.
Cool.
And I'm going to move your little heads. There we go.
I feel a bit seasick. Okay, so this is a GitHub repo that I've just put together to show you how simple this stuff is. Nick, feel free to jump in if I'm not saying something correctly or if I'm just not making any sense at all. So you can go and look at this repo. It's all up there. The thing that makes this a GitHub workflow is I've got this .github folder, and inside there I've got these YAML files, and they're pretty simple to use. So this idea of this is a workflow which can do multiple things. Inside my workflow, I've got a name for the workflow which will show up in the GitHub UI. We'll see in a second. I've got the triggers which will start this workflow. So this is running on a push of a particular file. So you can have a push for, generically for any push that happens on your repo. You can target down specific workflows to specific folders or even specific files, which is what I'm doing here. So this won't kick off unless I push a change with this hello world text file in there. And then as part of my workflow, I've got two sets of jobs. I've got a hello world Linux that runs on the GitHub Ubuntu runner. So when this fires, it's going to allocate me some VM that's got Ubuntu running on it, and it's going to tell it to run this command, which is just a bash command that's going to do a little hello world. I've got another job which does the same thing, but on a Windows runner. So I can use Windows machines, all part of the same kind of GitHub workflow. These jobs will run concurrently. But if you've got a structured workflow with dependencies, you can say that this job depends on that job, and you can have multiple steps within the job too. And again, you can make this stuff horribly complicated. But here's a kind of simple version. So if I go through and make a change to my hello world text file, one of the downsides with GitHub Actions is that you can't manually trigger them at the moment. You can only trigger them with some sort of interaction with GitHub. So if I say hello world,
does that mean like it has to be a PR or a commit or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can do a scheduled job, which so ordinarily you would have, if you're building your source code project, you would have a push trigger, maybe a PR trigger, and then ideally a cron trigger as well. So it builds every night because if your project doesn't build for a little while, because people aren't changing it, you still want to build every night and make sure that dependencies don't kind of break stuff.
Right.
Okay, so did I push that, or was I too busy answering the question? Let's take a push just to be sure. And now if I browse to my repo over here, and that's open on a completely different screen, so let me sort that out. Okay, let's bring you over here. Wildly clicking stuff. Okay, so this is the repo where all that stuff lives. I can see if I refresh this, I've got my hello world commit. I've got the little orange button here, which means it's running my my job. If I go and look at this, I can see these two parts of my workflow that are running. This was already completed, so it's super fast. It's going to say hello world. I can see the command that it executes and then the output that I've got in there. So it can be as simple as this. My hello world windows, the UI can be a little bit flaky, so sometimes it doesn't update as immediately as you'd like. But if you think of the complexity of this, it's still pretty substantially good stuff. So that's just showing you how this stuff works. I can run basic commands. I've got Linux and Windows. I can do simple stuff. But it gets really interesting when you want to do more complicated stuff, which is where you can use a Docker image. So I've also got another workflow in here, which is my Pi YAML workflow. That runs on a particular file being pushed in a commit as well. So this one didn't run when I pushed my hello world text file. It'll run when I push my Pi text file. This runs on Ubuntu. It's got a single step, and that step is going to use a Docker container. So this is what is enabling me to do really complicated stuff. If as part of my deployment process, I've got a bunch of tools that I need, I've got a bunch of scripts that need to run, I can wrap all that up in a Docker image. I can test it all locally, and when I run it with GitHub Runner, I can pass environment variables, I can pass arguments that I want to run, so I can control what the container does. But the beauty of it is then that's portable. So if I want to use that same thing in a Jenkins build or to run the CI locally, I can do all that stuff. So it's all the benefits of the Docker stuff. And this is just going to come from Docker Hub. So again, same deal when I edit my my build file, and I'll do a push that through. Hey, there are changes to commit. Come back here. You didn't see it, did you? There we go. Let's try again.
But while we're doing this, by the way, while you're clicking those buttons, I just want to tell everybody, if you have not tried Visual Studio Code as your editor, and you have the ability to choose your own editor, I think pretty much at this point, we're all saying, yeah, you should go check this thing out, because every year it's significantly better than the previous year. It's got so many new features. Yeah,
it's a phenomenal bit of kit, and you can. So what I'm doing here, I've got a I do this for all my demos now. I've got a markdown file where I say what to do with all the links to all the stuff. And then there's this nice little button here that renders it in a friendly view. So I can walk through this. And then if you want to follow it yourself later on, like you can do exactly what I'm doing. Just click these buttons. So yeah, nice little aside. And I use it all the time for everything.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on just how to use Visual Studio Code with containers and all that stuff.
We haven't even got into the extensions.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Don't get us started. Don't get us started. Okay.
No. I didn't. That was you.
That was me. And I'm not even on screen. I'm like side commenting, just ruining your day.
So this is pushed that different workflow. So this is doing now my, it's going to run a single step again, but it's running it in a Docker container. And what you'll see here is there's two things. It does the pull of the image. So all the stuff you would do if you were running this yourself, if you did a Docker run and pulled that 6-eyed pie image, it shows me it's pulled it all down. And then I can go and close this bit up because that's done. And then it shows the run step. It tells you the exact Docker command, and then it shows you the output. So like if you need to know the 1000th decimals of pi, it's 9. And this will all kind of do that stuff for you. So just to give you a feel for how that works, and what people kind of used to do is inside your YAML file, if you were building everything through Docker, if you've got multi-stage Docker files where you compile the application inside a container and then you package up and build it, then people would have like command steps to do a Docker build and a Docker push. And that kind of got clunky, which is where the new Docker action comes in and makes this stuff a lot simpler. But just to kind of hammer home the point, I've got one. This is a cut down version of a real GitHub action that I use for one of my projects, one of my clients. What you can do with GitHub is you can create these secrets inside your repo. And I can create a secret that doesn't, like if someone forks my repo, they don't see those secrets. If I've got admin access, I can't read those secrets, but they are available to actions inside the workflow. So I've got a bunch of actions here which represent an Azure service principal. So that's just an Azure resource that can create other resources. And as part of that, as part of my workflow, those are available to my steps. One of my steps does a login to Docker Hub, to a Docker registry, using those secrets. That's before the Docker action came in. And then one of my actions does a massive, this is all about deploying to an Azure Kubernetes cluster. So it creates the cluster, then it creates a bunch of secrets, then it deploys my application, which has already been built in a previous workflow. And they're all using these Docker actions. And those actions are just a Docker file with the tools I need. So I'm starting from the Azure command line because I'm working with Azure resources. But I also installed kubectl and I installed Helm and like a bunch of other stuff. Everything I need to do, I've got a nice Docker file. I've got a nice script that runs to actually do all the things that I want to do. I can test all that separately. When I'm happy with it, I push that, and then everything runs in my GitHub action. So it starts as simple as hello world, and it gets as complicated as like whatever you need to map out. Okay, so that was my introduction. I don't know whether that was too much or too little, but let's stop my screen.
Just right.
Oh, thank you. So we're going to the brick wall, which does not exist.
Well, I
lost the brick wall.
I was looking for a beach before, and I did not have enough time. I wanted a beach. Instead, we got the brick wall. So
we're all looking for a beach, bro.
Yeah, we're not allowed to the beach.
No.
You know what though? Beaches are overrated because your computer or your iPad does not work well on a beach. I don't care who you are. All right.
Okay, so now Nick's going to show us. I suppose you're going to talk to us about the reason for having this kind of Docker action.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously here at Docker, we've also been looking at GitHub Actions to use internally to automate a lot of our workflows. Traditionally, we use like massive Jenkins clusters and all this, which for some things are better. GitHub Actions doesn't support everything you need, but for a lot of things, it's a lot simpler to just chuck it into GitHub Actions and just have on those triggers that you just showed us. Most of our stuff is not quite as complicated as all those Azure commands you were just running, but
that's real. That was a real thing.
Whilst we were looking into this, we saw sort of other users creating actions to do the basic Docker build, login, push steps that you would see regularly during your CI/CD if you were pushing your images up. Primarily, like if you go into actions on a GitHub repo and you click on it, it goes, do you want to set up a workflow? And it gives you some templates. And the example Docker template they have is, as you were saying, like this massive bunch of shell commands, Docker login here and then run there and blah, blah, which isn't particularly easy to maintain. And also one of the disadvantages of Actions. There's no real way of running it locally to test the thing works. So you're constantly pushing these things up and down. And though, yes, the free stuff that you do get from GitHub is quite nice, it does still have limits on the amount you can use. So if you're constantly adjusting your CI scripts and then suddenly you run out, a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
So we decided to investigate on what people have done around GitHub Actions and Docker, and sort of see if we can create a supported version of that action for ourselves and for the community to use, and then bring the community together to sort of suggest improvements and this kind of thing, which is the stage where we've started now. We launched this middle of March, I believe, middle of this month. Forgetting the days.
It's all running together. When you don't leave your home, why do you even need days?
Stay inside. Yeah. So if I can share my screen, we'll give it a shot.
All right. Let's see. I'm looking for questions in chat while you're setting that up. Are there any plans to allow for using other registries besides Docker Hub, or is this already supported?
So you can actually already use other Docker registries. So if we just pop open this, so this is just a obviously very basic repository with simple Docker file, a license, which is
let me.
Our build push action.
That's
sure what's
weird.
going on with the Skype output.
That is not your screen. Let's see. Actually, I think I see your screen, but all I see is Skype.
Have I shared the wrong screen?
Maybe. That's okay. Try again.
That was a pretty nice effect.
It was pretty trippy. It was like when I was a kid, and back in the old days, I'll tell you a story. We had VHS tapes, and I would have a VHS recorder, and I figured out that if you pointed the VHS camera live with the TV plugged in to the TV, you would get the same effect of the infinite waves of light. So I just had a flashback to like when I was 10. So thank you.
Right. Have I managed to get the right one this time?
Let's do this. Oh yeah.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Zoom in a little bit.
And then
Get rid of terminals and all this nonsense. Yeah, so this is a very basic example of just using the build push action. So doing a checkout and then docker/build push. As Elton said, you can have secrets in your GitHub repositories. So here we've got Docker username and password set up. The repository that we're pushing to, and there's a few extra things. As someone's already asked, yes, you can just type in registry and put in sort of wherever you want to go, and it will sort it out for you. So it will log into the correct registry, it will build the tags correctly and push there, and that all just works. It's how all the end-to-end tests for the GitHub Actions stuff that we've built does that, is it spools up a local registry and then uses the action itself to push and pull. So hopefully that all works. Doesn't quite support things like ECR yet. That's potentially on the backlog, we don't know.
yeah, ECR is Amazon's container registry. Yeah.
Indeed. Yes.
Does that have a different authentication mechanism? Because with ACR, with Azure, you can have username password, so you can presumably still do this. Yeah.
So with AWS ECR, it does you believe it's OAuth. So we just haven't done the support for that at the moment.
Okay.
On sort of the V1, I believe it's sitting on the backlog somewhere. If anyone wants to comment on it and chuck it on the roadmap, go right ahead. I'm sure Ben and Justin will be very happy about it to see as much on the roadmap as possible, and then it can become their problem instead of mine. Or you can also chuck up issues on the repository for this itself. So obviously this is all open source up on GitHub. Find it in the marketplace if you feel like. But
All right.
anyway, so when you do the push, obviously it goes into actions and does a standard build, pushes yada yada. And you can see all your output in there, so nothing particularly exciting. So a few things that this action does is, one of them, it tries to follow some of the OCI standards. So it will automatically, if you tell it to, pull out as much context from your from Git as it can, and add in labels. So that's what that thing there does, which is all if you look into the README, there's a link there to the OCI standards that it's using. It also has the ability to tag using the Git reference. So if it will tag using what branch you're on, or using the PR number that you're on, or if you're actually doing a Git tag, it will do that. You can also limit what it's pushing, like when it pushes, by whatever you like. By default, it will always push. But for example, here, this will only push if you're creating a tag. It won't push when you're just pushing to a PR, for example. Mostly so you just don't fill up your Docker Hub. There is a few other things in there. If you look through the README, it supports most of the Docker build commonly used commands. So you can do the target of a chain build if you're using chain builds, add build arguments and that kind of thing, which it uses internally to do its own stuff. Which is fine, hopefully. We do already have some feedback as well. So one of the reasons we pushed forward to get this done as quickly as possible was to get as much feedback from the community. Elton, I know that you've chucked something in there yourself.
Yes, it doesn't work for Windows containers at the moment.
It does.
Yeah. And why is that? Is that a GitHub issue? I mean, is that a GitHub reason?
No, not a GitHub issue. So it currently runs using a Linux container.
Sure, that makes sense.
And the Windows hosts on GitHub do not support Linux containers on Windows.
So you can still do the workflow yourself, but you have to have a Windows runner, and then you have to have the Docker build commands, like I showed you in one of those examples. So you can still do it, but not through the nice kind of shiny action that does all the other stuff. But now it's on the backlog.
It is indeed.
It's there.
I think there are a few other things on the backlog. There's a host of issues. The first one that came up was apparently I'd misspelled the word license, so apologies for that. I'd spelled it in British English, but
then you didn't misspell it. That's fine. Well, in terms of spelling, I mean, I think I've fixed 5 spelling corrections so far on this very show, on just the limited little things, and I still have people submitting PRs to my courses 3 years later with spelling corrections because you know what, spell check in Vim is not always great, so. It's I need to switch to VS Code for obviously better spell checking. I have
so we did have one question that I saw, Nick. So I guess the answer is no. But this doesn't support Docker app yet. This is just for individual images.
This is just for individual images at the moment. Yeah.
I had another question. What if you're on GitLab? Is there any integration, or is there a way to
just your GitHub Actions?
So it's like it looks the same, but they're totally different engines, aren't they? So yeah,
because I mean GitLab has the pipelines, right? But it's totally different.
Yeah, I mean you can still do the same thing with it. So before this action, what I would typically do, I wouldn't do the Docker build. I'd do a Docker Compose build, because I'd have multiple things that I was building. So you just have a run command, Docker Compose build, Docker Compose push. It's not great because you're doing the login. Even though you're getting the secrets from your repo, like there's some VM somewhere that temporarily has logged in with your credentials, and then who knows. But you can do it manually, but not through the slickness.
Yeah.
Cool. So Brett, are we kind of out of time now?
Yeah, you are, unfortunately. And I was looking for some more questions. Sorry. I think the GitLab one was the last one. So let's go to the Whale of Fortune. If you're done sharing there.
Stop sharing there.
Yeah, let's go.
I can find the button.
Let's go to our prize reel. For those of you still watching live, you still have a chance to win. And of course, our wheel has to show back up. All right. So if you're just joining, remember the rules. The first person in chat to get the answer or the equivalent misspelled version of the answer, because I'm sympathetic to the spellings, you get what Moby will deliver to you in this swag box you'll eventually get. All right.
Hang on, there are some new rules that you've made up along the way. So community leaders are allowed, but captains aren't.
Yes. Wow, okay. that is a good and consistent distinction. Well, the reality is that captains get swag constantly anyway. So I feel a little sympathetic for the rest of the community. But I'm sure that any captain who answers first will get something. But we don't want to deny the rest of the community, I guess is my point. And the captains also helped come up with these questions. So, all right. Okay? So we have Moby here in the center of the screen. He is known, the little whale there is Moby. His full name is myDock, and he has a sister. What is her name? What is myDock's sister's name? Or we assume sister. We assume she's his sister. myDock.
We're getting there.
Oh, Aaron got it. All right, Aaron, good job. Let's roll. Yeah, good job. And let's do the wheel here.
Oh, you didn't do the noise.
Yeah, the noise is there. You just don't get to hear it on your end. Another hoodie. All right. I don't know. I'm partial to the hoodies. I think they're the best prize. Besides the books, because the books are going to actually.
Besides my book.
Yeah, besides the books.
My excellent book.
Really, the super swag is everything, but nobody's winning the super swag today, so I don't know what we're going to do. All right, so you know the rules. If you were here earlier, Aaron, email Jenny@docker.com up at the top. You can't actually see my hand up there. Email Jenny, and she will make sure that someday, once shipping resumes to the world, you will get your swag. So good job with that. And thanks for everyone trying. You got to be faster on those fingers. It's when there's 400 people all vying for the same hoodie. It's a rough competition. But you still have 2 more chances to win. Two. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being on the show.
Cheers, guys.
All right. And of course, Elton is glutton for punishment and is still hanging around.
I'm saying I got to change my.
I got to go change. Green screen is staying. Thanks, Nick. We will see you around. And let's go back. For some reason, it forgot your green screen again. It just, All right.
Okay, there we are. Totally different day.
And then Michael's in the room. Oh, wait. I got to get the right. What am I doing? What is that one?
We're all tiny.
We're all tiny.
It's social distancing, isn't it?
That is true. We could do that. Let's just do the social distancing thing. All right.
Too close to you, Bret.
I really don't know what I'm doing.
No, this is right.
All right.
This is cool.
All right. So for this,
So it looks like I'm wearing the jacket that you just took off here. So
yeah. Well, you're sat next to me, aren't you?
you swapped jackets. All right. So now we're talking. Okay. So if you look at our schedule, we're talking about Docker with Kubernetes now, which several of us, it was by request. We're like, hey, let's talk about all the ways that Docker and Kubernetes work together, because sometimes that can be confusing. So on the show, you've met Alton. We now have Michael Irwin, who's only a few hours from me, but we're social distancing properly over the internet. And he's an application architect at Virginia Tech. It's a university here in Virginia, USA. And he's also an adjunct faculty instructor for the computer science department. He basically teaches containers as a part of his job, which is pretty cool, among many other things. So thanks for coming to the show.
sure, glad to have you.
And let's see, that's right. Somebody saw it. Dino in the house.
There it is.
Dino, not Dino. I don't know why I said Dino. Yeah. There we go. Maybe I'll just have that. Oh, where'd he go?
So to explain it, I've been known as the one behind the Dino suit at DockerCon last year. My talk, the getting started with containers, was chosen as one of the replay talks, and I during the replay day, it's not recorded, it's a little less formal and everything. I started it wearing an inflatable Dino suit, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And
who knew that your Dino suit one day could insulate you while you go to the grocery store and walk around outside?
I've actually thought about that, but thinking that it's a fan that's blowing all the air in, so if anybody did cough, it would just suck it all in.
It's basically like a microbiome for whatever you
keep other people safe. You would be doing your bit for society.
I'd be sacrificing myself.
Pulling the virus in, pulling it in. That's right. All right. Well, so we have good times at DockerCon, so we will be having good times again with maybe he'll make his reappearance. Does he have a name?
It doesn't yet at this point. So maybe folks in chat can help us out with that.
Docker Dino? Hashtag Docker
You can call
Dino?
them the .NET framework.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have to think about that. He needs a name. All right. So we're talking about Kubernetes. And basically, from my point of view, when we started talking about this topic was, obviously, we just saw demos of adding Kubernetes with a one click when you're on Docker Desktop. That's great. That's my favorite way locally on my Mac to use Kubernetes. And Docker manages the Docker version and the kube control version, as well as the Kubernetes version. It's Kubernetes running on top of the Docker container engine. So the advantage there is if you're running Kubernetes locally on Docker Desktop, then you can still use Docker PS to see which containers are running in the pods, and you can see the
You
pods.
have to lose the dinosaur because people are just looking at the dinosaur and no one's listening to what you're saying. If I'm doing that and I'm on the show, then everybody else is too.
They're not paying attention. All right, so that's okay because what I'm saying is just blah. So let's get to Michael. You had some demos you want to talk about, like turning it on. Well, we saw that already. We saw turning it on in Docker Desktop.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll have some fun here.
And obviously, we're not. By the way, while you're turning that on, I was just going to say we're not. We realize that there are so many ways to run Kubernetes, and whether that's locally on a container cluster in the cloud through an automated solution. I myself always at some point have micro K8s, Minikube, and Docker Desktop all running Kubernetes at the same time, and on the same machine. But around things like KubeAdmin, we've got lots of tools out there. But when I'm teaching new people in the courses, I tend to talk about Docker Desktop first, just because it is the easiest way if you've already got Docker installed to just get Kubernetes running for testing. So not to spoil too much of Michael's demo, but that would be the first step, is just checking the box like we saw earlier. So if you're watching this not live, you can back up in the show and see that.
Yeah, and I can just show it real quick because it takes a whole 30 seconds to do. So I'm going to tilt my glasses up a little bit so you don't see the light glaring off of it here. But so if I go into the preferences for Docker in the Kubernetes section, check the box, save, and apply. And it will take a little while to spin it up. So I've already got it spun up here, and we're not going to waste time waiting for all that to start here. So I've already got it up and running, and it's good to go. So
go ahead.
Good to go.
I got two of you.
All good. I'm using our favorite code editor, Visual Studio Code here as well. And I'm going to be working with a terminal down here in the bottom. So one of the things that comes up often, and I know you've mentioned this a few times, Bret, is a lot of students and a lot of people get confused. Okay, I've got Docker Desktop installed. How do I get this kube control, kube cuddle, however you say it? I'm going to call it kube control, but how do I get that kube control tool installed? And the cool thing is, well, with Docker Desktop, it's already installed and it's already ready to go for you. So I can even just start off by running my first command and just say, let me get the nodes that I'm talking to right now. And I get back the Docker Desktop. And so it's already up and running. I'm talking to it. I'm getting responses from it. It's all working. One of the other common things that we encourage people to do from the very start is to configure your shell autocomplete. And the way that you do that is actually pretty easy. The Kubernetes, the kube control command line actually provides a command to make that really easy. And if you ever forget, you can just type kube control completion and add a -- help. And it will give you instructions on what you need to do based on your shell. So it tells you, okay, on Mac OS, here's what you need to do. If you're using normal shells or bash shells, here's what you do. I think, are you still using ZSH too, Bret?
I am. Well, now it's in Mac at least, it's now the default. So there's probably a lot more ZSH users now worldwide just because of Apple, but.
That's very true. Okay, so I've been using ZSH for quite a while, and so it tells you how to do it if you just want to do it for the current shell or if you want to load it so that it's always going to work. And I'm going to set it up so that it's always going to work. So I'm just really going to copy and paste that command, and now I'm going to exit out of this one and just give myself a new shell since I didn't update my current shell. And now I should be able to autocomplete and say, all right, give me my pods. And right now I don't have anything running.
Are you able to zoom in a little bit for those that are on the smaller?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
There we go. So let it adjust there.
Yeah. Nice.
There we go. We may get some fun word wrapping fun later, but that's all right. So right now I don't have any pods running. So let's start off with just running something super basic. I'm brand new to Kubernetes. I just want to run my first pod. So I'm just going to run a pod. I'm going to call it my first container. It's going to be the Ubuntu image. I'm going to tell it to remove, so auto clean up once I'm done with this, and just run it interactively. I've already pulled this image, so this is going to start it pretty quick. But now I see that I guess I don't have, let me turn on my do not disturb real fast. There we go. I'm in my container here, and if I start another shell real quick, I can do my git pods, and I see that pod running. And that's all it took. And so this is just like a normal Ubuntu container, so there's nothing too fancy. I'm not going to show off too much with it. But again, it's starting pods, it's getting going, and I didn't have to do much. So one of the things I'm going to do is actually just a real quick demo, and I'm going to deploy a really simple app. And those of you that have kind of followed along with the way I do trainings or whatnot will recognize this demo pretty quickly. And but before I do so, I'm going to encourage people, especially that are using Visual Studio Code, go to the marketplace and look up Kubernetes. Microsoft has an extension that's actually really, really good for Kubernetes. It provides a lot of capabilities. I know we've got a small screen here, but a lot of features. You can browse your Helm repos and see your clusters and a lot of really cool stuff. Just as a quick example, here's my Docker desktop. I can see my namespaces, my nodes, lots of different things. I've configured a couple of Helm repos because I've been playing with some Helm charts, and so I can deploy like traffic as an ingress controller, all that kind of stuff. And I can do it all directly from just this side menu. It's really awesome. But one of the other cool things that I can do with it is let's make a new directory here, and I'm going to let's make our app. And I'm not going to make this a Kubernetes 101 or anything. We're going to just deploy something real quick. So if you want to learn more, check out Bret's courses or read Elton's book, or look at other people's stuff. So what I've got this deployment YAML file, and most of us know that Kubernetes YAML is a pain in the butt to write, and it's hard to remember all the different things. But with that extension in place, I can just start writing deployment, and I get a starting template here, and I'm going to name my app Cats. Okay, and my image, Mike Surrey said Cats 1.0, and it's going to run on port 5000. Okay, and for kicks, I'm going to give it a couple of replicas, and you'll see that it's doing the intelligent IntelliSense autocomplete for us. And so, all right, I want 3 replicas. So let's do a kube control apply. And so one thing that you can do is I'm saying I want to apply all the files that are in this directory, and it's going to grab all those YAML files and just apply it for us. And at this point, we'll see git pods. Okay, I've got my 3 pods running. But for those of you that may know at this point, I've defined a deployment, but my deployment's not actually available. If I go to localhost 5000, nothing's working here. And that's because I haven't defined a service to actually make it available yet. So let's do that real fast. And I can just type service, and it will give me a template to start with. The selector is going to select labels that are on my deployment, and I'm going to use port 5000. Both my target and my normal ports are the same. So I could leave out target port, but I'll just leave it here. And I'm going to specify a type here. And one really cool thing about Docker Desktop is I can use the load balancer type. And that's something that you don't get with some of the other options that you were talking about earlier, Bret, like Minikube and whatnot, that it doesn't have that load balancer integration. While like if you're running in a cloud provider, for example, if I were deploying this on AWS, it would configure an ALB and auto connect it to my cluster and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good point, by the way, for people that if you're new to Kubernetes for local development and testing, one of my big first issues when it first started showing up was, okay, how do I right? Like that's a non-trivial thing, right? Like how do I get my app? I know with Docker I would always do like a dash p rather, and it would just show up on the port I told it, but it wasn't as obvious with Kubernetes. Docker has this great feature out of that box. So Docker has this built-in load balancer automation, so it makes it almost as easy with Kubernetes. So for those of you, just remember that later. If you're new to this, just remember later that you just need to enable a service of load balancer type, and come back to this video.
Yeah, and this is a great article that we can link out to. Let me close this up here. Boop. And this goes into all the different types of services, the cluster IP, and it has really good diagrams and is written by the folks at Google Cloud, and goes into really the differences between the services and load balancer and all that kind of stuff too. So again, we're not going to make this a whole lesson on that, but really, really good article on that. So let's go back to here. So I've applied my changes, and now if I go to my app and refresh, I get my cat's app. Now, so this really just displays a random GIF. The funny thing is how much this has really taken off. So this was actually one of the hands-on workshops from DockerCon, I think 2015. And I went and I did the workshop, and I put it online, and I guess most people didn't push it to their registries or their repo. And so for some reason, mine has taken off, and I've used it in tutorials, but I didn't come up with this app or anything. It was a DockerCon legacy from many years ago, but yeah, it's continued to live. So I'm going to do one quick change, and I'm going to deploy version 2.0 of my app now. And so we'll do this. And one of the things I'll just mention real quick is for those that are new to Kubernetes, you can add the -- watch to the end of it, and you can kind of watch the events, the changes as the pods are rolling out. It doesn't clean up previous lines, so you do have to kind of keep track of it yourself of what the current status is, and that can be a little messy at times. But so once it starts to feel right, then you can see, all right, I've got 3 new pods running that are within 30 seconds. And if I go back here, version 2.0 of my app is instead of cats, it's dogs, because dogs are better than cats. So shots fired. Anyways, so again, I can practice all these deploys. Again, I'm doing really basic deploys here, but if you want to test, all right, how do I do a blue-green deployment? How do I do a canary deployment? I want to add a ingress controller and all these different things. You can do all that. One last thing that I'll mention too that comes along with Docker Desktop, and then I'll hand it to Elton for a couple minutes, is Docker Desktop comes with the built-in compose for Kubernetes operator. So I can take a compose file like this and say, deploy it to Kubernetes, and it will translate this compose file and create the equivalent resource on Kubernetes. Do that real quick, stack deploy. And so the only thing that changes here is I specify the orchestrator being Kubernetes, and I'm specifying the compose file specifically because I'm not using the default name here. And then my stack name. And this should spin up pretty quickly because I've got all these container images pulled. And there we go. And so it's stable and running. I could get my pods. And I see all those pods running plus my cats from earlier. And if which actually I should probably remove cats. Oops. App, there we go. And now if I go here, give it a second. Well, there's the results app, and they were conflicting on the same port. I should remove cats beforehand. But anyways, it deployed the stack. It's up and running, and I can do my voting app here, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Again, using the compose file and just being able to deploy it, I don't have to start with figuring out how do I write all this Kubernetes YAML. I can take what I already know and go from there. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
And one more thing I'll just mention is with the.
Is this like
dashboard.
the Apple
I know.
keynotes? One more thing. Oh, and one more thing.
So
yeah, but a lot
when
of people don't know about that. So that was a
app-
good tip. A lot of people don't know about how
know.
that compose
That's
stack
true.
stuff works. So that's a good demo. All right, sorry.
Sure.
Last thing.
So, yep. So in the Docker dashboard, I can see this voting app stack that I just deployed, and I can see that even though they're running as pods and in Kubernetes world, I can still see them running here in the Docker dashboard. I can see all the containers and whatnot too. So really cool visibility and everything, and it makes it really easy for me to get up and started with Docker desktop. So that's my demo. So
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so I'll stop screen sharing.
We had by the way, we had a couple of questions. One of them was
sure.
Can we use that operator in our production deployments?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's you can run it on if you go to the GitHub repo, it's all open source. You can run it on AKS, you can run it on EKS, you can run it on your own cluster. So yeah, you can literally take your Compose YAML file and deploy it to your 1,000-node Kubernetes cluster running in Azure. Yeah, like it's you don't get all the options of Kubernetes, obviously, because Docker Compose currently doesn't allow you to describe things that aren't Docker Compose. So you can't use all the stuff that you can do in Kubernetes, but it'll get you a chunk of the way there. And it's a really nice way to migrate if you're looking at migrating upwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that Kubernetes YAML is, 4 times bigger, is because it can do more things. So, but if you don't need those things, then this might be a good alternative to that. Yeah, especially if your team's very familiar with Kubernetes and you want to accelerate they're very familiar with Compose and you want to accelerate your Kubernetes usage without having to train them on Kubernetes YAML. It's kind of a cheat way to getting there. All right, thank you so much, Michael. Elton, what do you got for us?
Oh, what have I got? I've got a 30-minute demo and I've got 5 minutes to do it in. So let's get going. So I'll share my screen.
No, that's okay.
See that up and running.
That's okay. Because I told everybody we were 15 minutes behind. So you
okay, cool.
You got, unlike in the real world where they're not going to kick us out of this room.
YouTube might shut us down.
Yeah. Pew.
Okay, so I should be sharing. So we should be good to switch to that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I have actually recorded a longer version of this, and I'll put it up on a separate YouTube.
Nice.
YouTube video of it when I get around to editing it. So this is I don't know. Well, if half the audience are going to turn off now, I'm going to talk about running Kubernetes and Windows containers together because the background that I'm in, there's a whole chunk of Windows applications, whether they're .NET Framework or the latest client I work with is a Fortran application. They're built for Windows. They run on Windows. They want to move them to the cloud, but not one particular cloud. They don't want to rewrite the app, all that sort of stuff. Stuff I've been, like, if you've been following me, the stuff I've been talking about literally for 5 years. And now you can do it in Kubernetes. And that's really cool. So on Amazon EKS and on Azure AKS, you can spin up a cluster with 10 Linux nodes, 5 Windows nodes. You can deploy your old .NET monoliths on the Windows nodes. They're running in containers on the Windows servers, in pods. They can still talk to the other pods that are running on Linux. You can start breaking up your application, all that cool stuff. What sucks is the development experience because you can't do that. You can't run a hybrid Kubernetes cluster with some Windows and some Linux because the Kubernetes API is only Linux. So Docker Desktop gives you the Kubernetes API running in Linux containers, and it gives you Windows containers, but they don't talk to each other because they're effectively, if you were watching earlier, they're running kind of different VMs. So they don't you can't have an integrated development experience, but you can kind of approximate it. So that's what I'm going to show you here. So what I've got is I've got an old application and a kind of newer application. I'm going to try and run it all in one piece. So as everybody else does, I'm using VS Code, but I will put my terminal to the side. This stuff's all up on GitHub repo if you do want to follow along. So I'm running Docker Desktop on Windows. I am in Linux container mode at the moment, so I've got the option to switch to Windows containers, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to do my Docker version just to prove that. So my server is Docker Engine Community, and it's running on Linux. So that's inside the VM that Docker Desktop is managing for me. I also have Kubernetes running. So if I do kubectl get nodes, and incidentally, it's kubectl. If you go to the official documentation, the logo is a cuttlefish. Okay.
I'm just going by the commit, the commit that said. You remember the commit notes?
I'm all for diversity, but not around this. So, so I've got my node. It's my Docker Desktop node. I'm going to deploy a demo application. I'm just going to do a kubectl apply. All my specs are in there. It's just a really basic application that you can go and kind of check out for yourself. If I browse to that, it's a variant of my Pi calculator. So this is a .NET Core application. So it's built to run in Linux containers. It's running in a Linux pod, all the usual kind of Kubernetes stuff. There's a load balancer service in there. So again, I could deploy this on whatever. This is the host name of the machine that's coming through, which is my pod name. So all that sort of stuff. So it's all working fine. This is my main screen because I wanted to show you the whale icon. You can't make that move. I can spin this up and I can see how long it takes to calculate in different ways and all that sort of stuff. Pi is a good indicator actually. If you're looking at things like ARM CPUs and whether you can move your app to ARM, Pi is a really nice way because it's expensive to compute this stuff, so you can get some good stuff. Okay, so you're going to see my Skype messages coming up now because I can't make that go on the other screen. And I can't lose Skype because obviously. Okay.
What are you doing in Skype? What's wrong with you?
This is my .NET Core application. So I've also got some monitoring in there. So let's do this. I'm going to deploy Prometheus. So again, I've got some stuff in there. I've got my my deployment, with my pod descriptions for Prometheus, and I'm running all that stuff. I've got a little service, so I can browse to Prometheus, and let me see if it's scraped it yet. Yeah. So Prometheus is configured to go and look at my my Pi web application. So if I go and look at the configuration here, I'm looking at this Pi web target, and it's going to run every 30 seconds. So let's give that a moment to run, see if it's got anything yet. Not yet. If I look at my targets. So, oh yeah, it's just up here. So this is my Pi web. It's up and running. It's being able to scrape the data. If I go back to my graph, one of my custom metrics tells me how long it took to compute Pi for various levels of how complicated it is. So I'm just collecting the metrics. For people from the .NET world, there's just a NuGet package, like an npm package. You add it to your application, you record the metrics you're interested in, and you get them all like this. So it's all pretty super simple stuff. But it just so happens I've also got an old .NET Framework application that I want to use for the API. This is a WCF application. So this is the Windows Communication Foundation, which was how you built services in .NET from 2005 through to 2015 maybe. It could do all sorts of things, and it was really cool. And you can run those things in containers too. So if you've got old WCF apps, you can by tweaking the configuration, you can change them from an XML SOAP web service to a JSON HTTP service. You can kind of do that stuff, and then you can bring them into your modern world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to Windows Container Mode. So now it says it might take some time, but it probably won't. So if I look at Docker version again, now I'm looking at my Windows engine. So but all my Kubernetes stuff is still running. So in the background, my Pi web application, if I tone that down to 1,000, hey, look at that. Oh, look at that, didn't work. Excellent. Okay, in that case, my demo might be an awful lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. Let's see if that's going in there.
It was a 404, not a...
It was a 404. Did I do something weird?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, so Prometheus is still up and running, and that's the thing I care about. So I'm going to do a Docker container run. So this is going to run a Windows container. So again, this is I've already got a container called that from my dry run earlier. RM Pi.
I'm so guilty of that too. I do those last minute dry runs in order to make sure that things work, and then it actually causes things to not work.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't even need to be named that, so I don't know why I give it the name. Okay, so now I'm running my WCF application in my Windows container, and like inside my VM, I've got all my Kubernetes stuff that's still up and running. So I can browse to this application. If you were paying attention, it took a few more seconds to run because this is a full Windows Server application. It has that kind of multi-gigabyte image. Takes a few seconds longer to start up. And it'll take a few seconds longer to fire up. So when I'm sending in my request here, it takes a moment longer to come through. But it kind of works in the same way, and I can spin up various levels of Pi if I really want to see that stuff. So it does something similar, but now this is Windows container. Now my Prometheus configuration, so my Prometheus is still working in Kubernetes. My .NET WCF app, I've added Prometheus metrics to it, and Prometheus is configured to go and grab them, but it can't find them because it's on a completely different machine. It's on a completely different Docker machine. So even though Prometheus is trying to get those metrics from my old WCF app, it can't find it, and that's where the kind of hack comes in. So what I'm going to do, Kubernetes lets you define services in different ways, and one of the ways you can define it is by manually specifying IP addresses. So I can deploy this service called pi-wcf, which is what Prometheus is looking for. I can use this port, which is like random made up port where my metrics are. And then I can specify my actual machine address where Docker Desktop is running. So that's my local IP address. So what it's doing is when Prometheus inside my Kubernetes cluster is making a call to pi-wcf, the DNS name gets resolved by Kubernetes to this IP address, so it comes out of the virtual machine into my full machine where I'm publishing my port in my Windows container. So I'm kind of bouncing off the local machine to get the connection. So it's kind of a hack, but it's better than having to run 4 or 5 virtual machines yourself, which is the only real other option for doing Windows development in Kube. So let's go and just prove this works. And when I say prove, I mean see if it works. I'll deploy my headless service. So Kubernetes, there are different ways of doing services. They call this a headless service where I don't have a selector for the service. So the service exists, it's got a cluster IP address, but it isn't binding to any pods. And by creating the endpoints, sorry, I can still see Michael, and I've just seen him put his hat on. I can specify the endpoint, so I'm manually specifying my IP address. It's what you would do if like you had a database server in your data center, and you wanted to bring your Kubernetes clients to use that, but to use a nice kind of service name for that. Okay, so that's enough talking. So let's go back here. If I refresh this now, now it's up. So now when Kubernetes is making that call, DNS gets resolved to my IP address. I can still see it. I can go and click the graph for my duration seconds. And I've got 2 bunches of stuff now. One from my new web application, which is .NET Core, running in Linux containers in Kubernetes, and one from my old WCF application, which is running in my Docker Windows container on Docker Desktop. And like this isn't what I would do in production. In production, I would just have another deployment specification for my WCF app with a constraint telling it to run on Windows nodes. So you can kind of approximate that without having to do too much monkeying around, as long as the components are all talking through network communication. So yeah, you can see all that stuff is up here. And I can share the URL for that. And it's, you know, there's a more extended version coming on YouTube for those who are interested. But yeah, it's a really nice way to deal with the fact that everything's running on the same machine, and Docker Desktop will let you kind of hook around the machine itself to integrate those components. And I'm done, so let me stop sharing.
Yeah. All right.
Boom.
All right.
Oh, there's a brick wall. I see. Oh,
Nice, Bret.
While you were chatting. Also, what's interesting is that your light has changed.
Well, it hasn't. Like, it's still the same light.
Yeah, it's weird.
Your software is.
Yeah, it's Skype that's changed, because it's like it's putting you have like a halo now. Oh. So we have Captain's hat. You have Halo, and it seems that I'm a lower grade captain because I don't have the scrambled eggs like Mike does over there. So I'm like a rear admiral. He's
I don't have one of those at all. At the time of captaincy, when you guys were getting those, I was an employee, and therefore lost my captaincy.
Yeah.
And when I came back,
you didn't get a hat again. Well, I have spares. I need to send you. I need to send you one.
I've got the bubble hat.
Right.
Maybe you can spin the.
Yours is one of the revered tip of the captain hat.
Yeah.
True. You do have a life preserver.
Or tip of the hat, Captain Awards. Yeah.
So now we've come to the time of maybe you can roll your own whale of fortune that you might get some captain swag, but you know captains aren't allowed, so I don't know what you're gonna do. Let's do this. All right, people. Now is your time to get back in the chat and get your fingers on the keyboard, because we have our second to last whale of fortune giveaway. Here's your question. The first person to answer in chat correctly becomes the winner, and we will mail you something. What's the name of any of the doodles, the repos of those doodles from the pre-show video, which means you had to have been someone who watched the pre-show, which means you've been here the whole time for 3 hours. Are there any of those people left? I mean, you know, this is YouTube. People don't hang around for more than 10 minutes, but maybe you're still someone who's been here dedicated for 3 hours listening to us. The question is, what is the name of any one of those doodle repos that were in the pre-game show? We even typed one in that you could actually. It's a full repo name of the doodle, like any of them, or just the tag if you remember the tag.
The full repo name.
Yeah,
it's just a load of random words.
Yeah, I know. All right, here we go. Oh wait, we got some. Cheers.
Yep, I'm seeing some.
All right, looks like we have a winner. All right, good job. Let's spin the wheel for you. 7th was the last demo, by the way, so you can run a bunch of Docker doodles if you go watch the beginning of this show. And let's spin that wheel. What are you gonna get?
Services.
I mean, it's obviously not my light because that would mean I have massive light behind me, which I haven't. I've still got the green screen.
You get a water bottle, another water bottle, and because you hung out the whole show, we're gonna run it again. You get 2 prizes.
Snap.
I'm making up rules. I'm Pat Sajak right now. I'm just making up rules. You can win.
Awesome!
2 water bottles. What is the odds? What are the odds? All right. So to get your prizes, congratulations on winning. Sorry for everyone else that wasn't as fast on the keyboard. You're going to email Jenny at docker.com and let her know what you won, and hopefully someday we'll get a box in the mail as soon as the shipping resumes normally around the world. All right, good job. Well, thank you too for being on the show, and Elton for doing such a great, fantastic job as steering the conversation and keeping the show going while I took a break, even though I didn't. Even though I was here the whole time.
I'd be remiss real quick if I got off the show with my girls. Every time I travel somewhere, make me have to take Moby and Molly with them, so I have to show off the plushes. So here's the Moby and Molly, which was one of the trivia questions earlier, but here they are.
Yeah. So. All right. Now you can get that screenshot off of YouTube later and say, "See, I was live on the internet and I showed the." Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you too, and we're gonna jump to the next part of the show.
Okay. Thank you, Bret.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Up on the schedule, in case you're watching, still we got the last part of the show. Running a little bit behind, but that's okay because we still got time left, and this is the internet, so things can go on forever. We've got the last part of our show where I'm going to have 2 special guests on the show with me, and we're going to talk about some of the ways we've seen Docker being used and affected people, which this is actually one of my favorite parts of the show because we can talk about tech all day long, but why not? Let's see. Oh, here we go. Let me get my... Boom.
Why not?
All right.
Hello.
And I will pull down my green screen so it doesn't look weird. All right. And then now we're talking about myDockerBday stories. All right.
Hello.
And I will pull down my green screen so it doesn't look weird. All right. And now we're talking... I don't know why I'm hearing echo. It's kind of weird. All right. Everybody, you can hear me, Jenny? Tom?
Yep.
Okay.
I can hear you fine. Okay.
Cool. Want to make Skype's maybe starting to wig out a little bit. It's like, it's been 3 hours. I don't know if I can do this anymore. All right. So let's welcome to the show Jenny Bercio from Docker. She is basically the secret ingredient behind all of this happening today. You've been working for months on all this stuff. So I'm glad you get to be on the show and take some of the credit. So let's give her a round of applause. Round of applause, everyone. You don't get to hear this, Jenny, but there's actually clapping happening in the background.
Okay.
So, and she's working hard on DockerCon Live, which we talked about. So you're going to be hearing more about that. If you go to the dockercon.com website and you sign up, you'll be getting all the stuff about that free conference we're going to have in a couple of months. It's going to be great here on the internet. Basically, hopefully way more polished than what I'm doing right now. And on the other side there, we have Tom Shaw, who's in from Ireland, and he's a principal automation engineer at Digit Gaming. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bret.
All right. What are we doing? Why are we here?
All right. So we are here to kind of share a few stories from all of you. People have been submitting them on, if you go to docker.com/birthday, you can submit your stories, and we're sharing some today. I know Tom has a story to share. And personally, I want to thank all of our guests today and everyone in the audience. This has been so much fun. I smiled more today than I have in a couple weeks for sure. And particularly Bret, he's running the show and doing awesome. And Elton, thank you so much for being our host today.
Yes, we've had we've had no serious technical failures other than my own clicking and typing. So yeah, it's been a great show, and I'm glad we're wrapping this up with two people that I would not have known if not for Docker, and I consider amongst my friends. And I'm very glad to be a part of this community and to have all of you to hang out with now more in virtual than we probably did in real life. So
yes, definitely. Brett, do you want to pull up Emma's drawings, following up on Mike's sharing of his Moby and Molly as he travels? One of my coworkers' daughters loves drawing Moby and Molly. She's an 8th grader at Fisher Middle in Los Gatos and sent over some of her artwork to share with everyone today.
all right, let's see. Yeah, so we're gonna go over here. I'm actually gonna do it on the schedule, I think. See if this will work. All right, which one am I bringing up? The actual drawing?
Yeah.
Let's see if this works.
We have
There we go.
a drawing that she created in honor of Docker's 7th birthday, and she also created a watch. And can you pull up the picture of Emma? Hi. All right, I hope you're watching. Everyone at home too, if you have kids or yourself doing sort of doodles, please share them with us. Tag us on Twitter with myDockerBday, or send them over.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Also, pretty decent drawings of Moby and Molly, because
right.
And I love she signs it.
Yeah.
She's already like, I gotta, it's my art. It's gotta be mine.
All right, why don't we, Tom, you have been a Docker user forever. You spoke and attended every DockerCon, right?
Yep, that's right.
Pretty much. So I thought you would be great to share kind of your Docker journey and some of your uses over the years.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so as you said, I've been using Docker since 0.6, which is like August 2013. So we adopted it really, really early. I've worked for a bunch of games companies over the past several years. I worked for Demonware, which was part of Activision. I've worked for Riot Games, and now I'm working for DigiGames. So I've been using containers for about 7 years in different sorts of ways, like as a build engineer, as a developer, as principal automation engineer. I got involved with the community as the community lead. I've met like the best people over the past 7 years. Like I've met people from all different industries, the likes of Bret, who we just meet like once a year at DockerCon. But it's just been a really welcoming community. We had our first meetup in July 2014, and since then we've had over 30 meetups. Like nearly 5,000 people have attended those. So the community is really well supported. Our two biggest meetups we've had have been the last two. We had one around Kubernetes, one around Docker, a workshop. And just generally, like, containers solved a real problem in the games industry. Whenever we're launching titles like Call of Duty, some of the biggest titles on PC, console, and mobile are using containerized services in the backends. So we're using Docker to support millions of gamers every day. The problem that we have in the games industry is that we tend to like over provision really heavily. So whenever we launch a game, we want to make sure that the game launches smoothly. There's nothing worse than working 3 years in a game and then the launch just is a disaster. So we tend to over provision, and Docker just kind of solved that problem for us overnight.
Yeah, I remember you telling stories like years ago at DockerCon. You would tell stories about big games, like games that most people have played if they play shooters and other games like that. And you were talking about how before containers, like it was just crazy, the amount of infrastructure and work and effort. And people don't think about that. They think about the game development. They don't think about the infrastructure of the game so much. We just think it's a bunch of servers, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. In some cases, we're maybe over provisioning by 50%, which is just a massive amount of money. So containers kind of solved that problem for us. They gave us like real-time scaling. So as the load starts to peak, we can scale out. It just means that we have these launches of titles like Modern Warfare, which launched quite recently. It's just become much smoother. There's less like problems in day zero whenever the game's being launched. It gives players a much smoother experience. So whether or not you've heard of Docker or containers, there's a good chance that you're using them indirectly. They're hosting the back-end services for some of the biggest games in the world.
Yeah, it is cool stuff. All right, 1 second. I was clicking the wrong camera. All right, Jenny, do we have another?
Yes, let's share Natalia's story because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool.
She has a great sense of humor.
All right, go ahead. I'm going to throw out pictures.
Natalia is from Porto Alegre, and I'm probably saying that wrong, so please feel free to correct me. But today she lives in Ireland, and she learned everything about Docker from her local community leader led by Cristiano. Thank you, Cristiano. And she also made great friends there. I'll do the rest in her voice. So today I work a lot using Docker. I'm a freelancer, and I also help other women and Black people to enter the infrastructure and development area using Docker. And last but not least, on Docker's birthday last year, I met a wonderful person who is now my husband. And my husband is an excellent person, but he loves to interrupt production. Thank you for bringing me great friends and the love of my life.
Yeah.
So thank you, Natalia, so much for sharing your story. I've shared it far and wide. I love it.
Yeah, there's not much. I'm not sure that we're marketing that. That you'll find love at Docker meetups, but that has happened. So now we can just put that on the list of things that we've accomplished. Is that meetups? I mean, you saw if you were here from the beginning of the show, like. Meetups around the world, I think, were a large portion of how people learned about Docker because we have over 200 of them, and we've had that for years. And Tom and myself have been running these meetups for a long time, and it's amazing how to see so many people, that still show up, and it's new to them. And you have to remember as a community leader that year after year after year, you still get all these new people every meetup coming to learn containers and all the container tooling and stuff. So it's a continual reminder for me how the technology is still changing people's work, people's lives, and that the meetups are bringing people together, if not physically, now virtually, at least for a little while. So yeah. Do we have one more? I'm trying to think if we have one more.
Yeah, we can do another one. I want to share Alberto's story because he actually put something together for the community. We haven't released it yet, but we will. He is a teacher at the School of Engineering and a researcher at the Institute for Innovation and Technology in Education. And he is, so I'll read from his voice. As an online teacher and a computer science degree, I've always wanted to teach my introductory physics class using the very same software tools that real physicists have installed in supercomputers hosted at reputable research centers. However, my students do not have the time and energy to reproduce these complex scenarios. And from a mere mortal's perspective, the Gantt 4 is humongously difficult to deploy and use. However, thanks to Docker and Play with Docker, his students have a very decent sneak peek at one of the greatest experimental physics toolkits. And so he's just giving a shout out to Docker for reproducible research and our open learning materials. So thank you, Alberto. Hi, I see you in chat right now. Thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, very cool. All right. I think we have one more, right?
We do. Gerard.
All right.
So Joining a microservice-based architecture team was already going to be a steep learning curve. That would have been the case if it weren't for Docker. Learning and using Docker was a very pleasant experience and has improved my day-to-day developer experience because it makes everything easy, especially on projects that span multiple services. I'm truly grateful for this product. And everyone, if you notice the hashtag of myDockerBday, I think my Docker birthday story, and for many of us at Docker in the community, is really learning and hearing about the ways that Docker has enabled opportunity for you as users, for yourself, for your community, for your jobs, even for your industry, like Alberto's story. So please keep the stories coming. I'm so grateful to be a part of this community and work with everyone. And I really appreciate everyone joining today.
Yeah.
I've had a great time.
Yeah, it's been a great event, and I'm so glad we got to hang out with everyone and see all of the people in chat. And yeah, it's been fantastic. We're all gonna have a toast after this because I feel like, you know, with all the stuff in the news lately, it's hard to keep positive. But I feel like this show has been a fun and positive time for us to just remind ourselves that the world's we're still making tech. We're still solving problems. Everybody's, you know, still having to work on tech in their companies. So this is how we do it. We talk about it.
And we're still connected, right? So don't forget to DockerCon. The CFP closes tomorrow. And if you want updates and join us again, we'll be doing, this is a preview of some of the things happening at DockerCon, which is May 28th. Sign up for updates, email updates to know what's going on at dockercon.com.
Yeah, and now for the last and final prize.
Oh, we cannot forget that.
The Wheel of Fortune. By the time I get that right, we're going to be done with it. The Wheel of Fortune. I think we're going to have to bring the Wheel of Fortune back for DockerCon.
I was just going to say that. I don't think we can do another online live event without it.
Yeah, it's standard material now. All right, so in the chat we have, you just heard the answer to this question, so who's going to be the fastest to answer it? What is the date for DockerCon Live 2020? The first person to put it in chat gets a wheel of fortune. All right, what is the date for DockerCon Live 2020? Oh, there we go.
I'm going to go with Russell on that one. What do you think?
Oh, yep. I think Russell's got it. All right, here we go. Good job. Way to be the fast typer there. You clearly are very close to the YouTube stream servers. Let's spin it. T-shirt.
All right.
And I think because they're the last person on the last one, I feel like if I could manually spin that dial, I'd spin it over there to the super swag box. Because thanks for staying around, everyone. It's been a great show today. And reminder, Russell, in case you were not here earlier, I'll put Jenny's email up here. So right there. Email Jenny and let her know you're the final winner and that you get a T-shirt and a swag box. So that'll arrive to you someday soon. So that's it. That's all we had for the show. And thank you so much all for hanging out with us. We're going to be doing this again sometime soon here, the DockerCon Live, just like Jenny said. And Tom and everyone else, all the captains and the community leaders and the Docker employees and everyone, thank you so much for being here. This has been a great stream, and I will be live next week on my channel, so you can always just search for my channel here on YouTube. We have a show every week that we talk about Docker and DevOps and container stuff, all just like this. Not near as much fun as this because I don't have all these friends hanging out, but you'll see some people. We'll have some people around. But thanks again, Jenny and Tom. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you all on the internet later.
Cheers.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
to stay until something better came along. Until something better came along.